Hello and welcome to the Norwood School Committee meeting of Wednesday, November 15th. We are coming to you live from the school committee room in the Savage Center. There are 4 members in attendance. Anne Marie Mazzola is returning from a work commitment, so she will be attending late. Therefore, as the vice chair, I will be chairing the meeting. Could I ask everybody in the room to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so first on our agenda is the approval of minutes. We have minutes from October 25th. We have minutes from the mass workshop from October 5th, executive session from October 16th, October 25th meeting, October 26th meeting, and October 30th meeting.
So, Joan?
Yeah.
Can we go through them one by one, because not everybody was here for each one?
Sure.
And we actually do not have the mass workshops yet minutes, so those should go on.
Okay. Remove those. Okay, starting with October 25th.
I'll make a motion to approve those, because we were all there.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Oh, I as well. That passes 4-0. The meeting minutes from executive session on October 16th.
So we were all there for that one.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, but there's one edit. It says Ms. Sheridan adjourned the meeting, but it wasn't. It was me who motioned.
Did you email about that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so if that can just be, I'll make a motion to approve as long as it's changed at the end that I made the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes 4-0 with the amendment. The meeting minutes from October 25th.
So we were all there, so I'll
Yep.
make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0. October 26th.
So that was just you, Anne Marie, and I.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second that motion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstain?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So that that doesn't, I don't know if that passes. The vote there is 202. And October 30th.
October 30th, that was our safety executive session, so
I was not
David
there.
was not able to attend, but the rest of us were there.
So all in favor?
We'll make a motion to approve.
No, sorry.
That's okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Okay. So that passes 3-0-1. Great. Okay. Anne Marie is not here yet, so we will wait on the warrants. Superintendent, do we have any correspondence this evening?
We do not, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so now we're at public comment. Public can access the meeting in person at the Savage Center or live via NCM on cable and online as it is live streamed. I am reading too much of this. Public participation for the public comment period can be accessed in 2 ways. One, in person at the meeting. You can sign up in advance to the superintendent's office by noon the day of the meeting to pre-register or sign in at the meeting. Or call the superintendent's office at 781-762-6804 by noon of the day of the meeting to register and receive a meeting link that will be accessible for public comment only. In addition, you can also, I'm not sure if I said this, but you can show up here and seek to be on public comment as well. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing none, I will declare public comment closed at 7:11. So before we get started, I'm just going to note that we have a very long meeting. And I'm going to remind the committee that the numbers that are listed here for our rough time frame should be considered maximums, not minimums. And they're not aspirational either. We don't need to reach them. And so I'm going to ask that we are clear, concise, and comprehensive. And for the presenters, if you could also help us by being clear, concise, and comprehensive. We promise to limit our questions to those that are mostly relevant. I can't say we'll always be relevant, but we will try to be as relevant as possible to what's under discussion right now. And so I'm just going to thank everybody in advance for their cooperation for this evening. We do have so many time-sensitive things that we need to make sure we get to everything. Having said that, Mr. Riccardi, Facilities Quarterly Budget Update.
Good evening.
Hello.
Do you want me to pull anything up, Mr. Ricardo?
No, we're all
Okay.
set with that.
All right.
I'm here with Mary O'Brien, the business manager for the facilities department, who works with Karen for the end of the year report and for stuff during the school year, and did the figures, and she'll go over the figures after my short presentation. So we sent you basically a 3.5 year look at work orders, and we are staying right in that split where the school department's getting about 83% of the work orders, and the town is getting 17%. The current year is actually 4 months, and it drops down to the school got 77% of those work orders, and the town got 23%. The high school leads the way with the most work orders, as it should. It's the biggest building. It's got the most people in it, and it basically is starting to reach that point. It's in its 12th year, so it's starting to reach that point where things are starting to need replacement. But it's the big ticket items are always the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, and that is driving it. This year, and I'm not going to go further into that stuff because I think the slides are pretty self-explanatory. This summer, we did a lot of work at the high school, between changing all the lights in the library to LED lights. We reconfigured Dr. Crowley's engineering lab. We helped set up the new medical room that they're having, and we're going to do another round of work in there. It's been a very stressful year for the facilities department, the last 6 months. We've had 2 gentlemen out with cancer, one very serious, who's retiring December 1st. We've had, on the town side, we had our junior custodian at the Civic pass away, 26-year-old gentleman. We have one custodian who's got both family members, both mother and father, both very sick. So we have been down basically 4 people, and we're filling in with temporary help and with overtime. And one of the questions that was sent was about, am I concerned about our overtime budget? And we have $180,500 or so in overtime, and we've spent $40,000. With everything that's happened. So we're in good shape with that. That's a 4-month expenditure. Some of the things that you asked what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that we got 3 retirements coming up in the spring and early summer. I'm concerned about being able to replace those folks. We do have some resumes, but they're few and far between. It's not work that people want to go into anymore. But we will find people and we'll move on. I mean, the highlights is I still want to say that the guys, custodians at the schools and our central staff, mechanics, I continue to impress the hell out of me in the work that they can put out and do. And I've been doing this in the school department for almost 13 years now, and it's amazing to me that I've never received one complaint from any of our customers, faculty, staff, or students about any of the ladies and gentlemen that work for the facilities department. And that to me is, and we're all basically old people who grew up in a different time. And have a different kind of view of socialization. And sometimes my mouth, I can say things that I shouldn't say, but, you know, the guys are very, very mindful and respectful. And that's the thing that I think I'm the most proud of. The work is the work, but it's the dedication of the guys and the work that they do in the schools. So, with that, if there are any questions, I'll answer them. If not, I'll turn it over to Mary to go over the budget.
Please.
Okay, we sent over the fiscal year end for 2023, and basically out of the budget, the schools portion was 67% of it, and the town portion was 33% out of the expenses. If we didn't split the guys 50-50, then your portion would be even higher. It would be closer to 67%. And that would have increased your portion by like another almost $188,000 if we had charged you actually for the work that they did, type of thing. But since it's split, it's town's picking up some parts of it. I didn't know if anybody had any questions on fiscal '23 part.
If I can just add, there was a sizable amount of money not spent in '23. A good chunk of that was snow. We didn't have much last year. We also started to see the benefit of we're doing more in-house, using less vendors. And what's good about the savings that we have is when the new Coakley comes online, it's 60,000 square feet bigger than the existing Coakley. So we're going to have to add 2 custodians there. They handle about 35,000 square feet each for cleanliness. And because there are 2 cafeterias and 2 kitchens, and lunches will be going on simultaneously, and one's on the 1st floor and one's on the 4th floor, I think. We're going to need an extra lunch person that will work, you know, like 11 to 8 at night. So it's good to have that surplus that we can add the positions without asking for more money. That's what our plan is right now.
So Paul, at the end of fiscal year '23, because of the situation you just described, you were under budget by over $1 million, correct?
800 and something thousand,
No,
I think. Was it $1 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yes,
$1
okay.
million, yeah.
So you're saying, you know, as some of us are working with BBC and planning ahead and projections, we still want to maintain that in your budget?
Yes.
Both because it could snow.
Right.
Hopefully it doesn't. I hate
Right.
snow.
Nope.
It could
It's
snow.
not gonna.
And also for the reason that you're saying, that we're going to have to add
Right.
staff.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And it'll help with the new
Right.
non-personnel operating costs in that building.
Okay.
The electricity's going to be, it's going to be very efficient, but it's all electric building, and there's going to be a lot of maintenance in that building. Sorry, Mary.
Sorry. Yeah, 'cause also in fiscal '23, I pulled out, I don't know if I sent it to you guys or not, but I did like another report just on school side, and your surplus would have been only $168,597 if out of that monies, because the rest was basically from the town buildings.
Can you repeat that number, Mary? I don't see it, sorry.
I don't know if I sent it to you guys, but it was $168,597.
Thank you.
And then for fiscal '24 so far, till October 26th of this year, the schools portion right now is at 63% for the expenses, and the town side is 37% for the expenses so far. It is 4 months, basically, of expenses so far. Not good, doesn't break down all at once. We use up a lot more money. But we never know from time to time. It could be one building that's having a lot of issues, and they had all the issues last year, so we fixed it. So now this year it's a different one. So you never know what's going to happen until it does. Then again, with the vandalism so far this year, it's been a lot less than last year. So, but that could change, so we'll just have to wait and see.
The other thing, and Mary mentioned it at the beginning, there are 11 staff members, the office folks and the mechanics, that per the agreement with the town, the costs are split 50-50. So they spend a good chunk of their time in schools, but we only can charge 50% of their time. Except if it's overtime, we can charge the full overtime amount if they're working in a school. So that kind of, as Mary said, kind of artificially decreases what the real expense is to the schools. Cool. So-
Do we need to revisit that agreement?
No, I
It's
think
working?
It's working for us.
yeah, it's working, yeah.
I'm just asking, we're being told as a point of information, or being told because you
Yeah.
want it in my brain?
No, just
and-
information.
No, just information.
Okay.
I mean, and to me, it's information that, to me, that helps explain the difference between the work orders at 83% and the
Right.
expenses at 67%. There's the gap, some of that gap is the 50% of the labor.
Got it.
So to your point, the 50/50 was the original MOU when facilities
Yeah,
combined?
when we were, and Paul can talk more, but when we were combining the two, we looked at what staff did they each have, the town and the schools, what was needed to maintain it, and then there were a couple positions we added, like an electrician, I think.
We had an electrician and a plumber.
Yes, and those also are part of the 50/50
Right,
that you're talking
right.
about, yeah.
Any questions on the report I sent?
Questions?
No, thank you, Mary.
Thanks
Very
very
thorough.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody have a good holidays,
Yeah.
Christmas time.
Happy
You too.
Thanksgiving.
Thank
Gold
you.
star under 15 minutes.
Say what?
Gold
Gold
star.
star.
What can I say?
He's like, I want to go home.
He gets up early.
Yeah, he does.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Frazek. Coakley Middle School field trip. This is an update from a previous, correct?
Awesome, yes,
Okay.
yeah. Washington DC trip,
Yep.
fabulous experience. We have approximately 139 students registered, which means that we will take around 12 chaperones and 1 nurse. And we were able to, thanks to Tony Mizuko and some fabulous parents, raise enough money to offer, it's either 14 or 15 scholarships. I have it on a spreadsheet somewhere. To add those students to the program as well. So really excited. I think I sent you guys, I had previously sent over the itinerary and things like that, but just kind of resent that, as well as the list of students and the list of chaperones.
Any questions, Dr. Fraser?
No, so Joan, we approved the trip before for
Correct.
fundraising purposes, and then said we would do final approval once we got the list of participants, right?
So I believe so, but if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, any more discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's 4 to 0,
4-0.
sorry. I know Anne Marie would approve too, so in spirit, Anne Marie approves. Okay, so moving on, Dr. Frazek and Dr. Thompson, middle school grade 5 programmatic decisions. And if, as you're going through this, you could highlight the areas that we should, not that we shouldn't pay attention to everything, but the areas that we will need to vote on as you're moving through the presentation, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. I don't know what areas you might necessarily need to vote on.
So this is part of what we need to discuss tonight. So Dr. Frazek is going to be sharing an update of if we get all the programming in that is in the ed plan that we previously approved, what would that programming look like, and then also what would the staffing look like? And she's going to go into detail, but there's 2 different options for staffing models. We do need to discuss, we do need to have some vote tonight, but then whatever we decide tonight is going to have to be a discussion with BBC to see if there is a way to fund it. So everything she tells us tonight is going to come into play into the vote we have to take tonight, but the vote we take tonight may not be final because the number of staff we need is pretty high, and we're going to have a pretty in-depth conversation and analysis at BBC.
So the vote is whether or not to recommend the plan that's put forth before us for funding from the town.
That's a fair way to say it.
Yeah.
Great, thank
But
you.
it's not this year, it'll be next year's
Yep.
budget that
Yeah,
will.
Yes.
fiscal year 25, that I was following along with, okay.
Awesome.
So it's soon, but not immediate.
All right, so talking about 2025 and of course beyond. I don't want to let anyone think that we're just doing this for 1 year. We're going to do this for a whole lot of years. So I just want to give you a little background of what we've done so far to start with scheduling the new building. Last spring, we looked at a few different scheduling options. I connected with other middle schools as well as intermediate and 5 to 8 schools just to look at some things that they did for scheduling. Over the summer, got a group together with grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, some grade 5 teachers came into it, specialists came into it. Some of the department chairs joined us, so kind of a nice big group where we really just kind of talked about new schedules, what were some of the big important things that we wanted to have, both for grade 5, but also just for 6, 7, and 8, moving on together. So we kind of came up with sort of parameters, best practices, things that we wanted to try and avoid. With a group of 20 people, you are not going to walk out the door with a master schedule. That's not how that happens. But kind of gave a framework for us to come up with a draft. And then this fall, I am very grateful for the help of Jeff Kerr and Lori McGrory, who we hammered out a couple of, 3 or 4 different potential draft schedules that went through many iterations and made all of our brains hurt. And so we have a final proposal that kind of outlines the staffing needs, which I think is the biggest piece of this. Schedules change all the time, and how we put what goes into where changes, but it's always dependent on the number of people that we have.
And Margot, the work with Jeff and Lori, that helped you assess the specials.
Yes,
that
in
you're gonna get
particular,
into.
yeah, we really just looked at how, when, and where we were going to do specials, in particular for grade 5. Grade 5 does specials differently than how we do them at grade 6. Part of this whole project was being able to add things like STEM and computer and some other pieces to grade 5 and world language, which all kind of comes into play as we look at this. So this is the overall master schedule, 6 blocks. We've shortened Mustang Buck a little bit, put it into the middle of the schedule, because fantastically we only have 2 lunch blocks that we have to. I know Paul talks about it differently in terms of I've got 2 lunch blocks that I have to feed 500 kids at each one, but whatever, 500, it's fine. So Mustang Block is still there, still be able to use for Character Strong, our other SEL pieces, as well as just homework help and RTI and all those kind of little pieces. But also we gave a little bit of time back. One thing that we are looking at is not having passing time and possibly not having bells to allow grade 5 and potentially grade 6, but mostly grade 5 to have a little bit more flexibility. Grade 5 right now, like they don't march to little bells and go to different places, and we want to give them that still elementary feel and that option, so they would have some bigger blocks of time. The one thing that would change for them is that specials would move around the schedule, because in order to share staff, that's how our schedule works. So specials might change times, but they could really kind of manage or work out their own schedules in terms of grade 5. So those are sort of the pieces that we were. So it says the essential arts will rotate in grade 5.
Margot, a number of years ago when we were touring different middle schools, like when we were writing the ed plan, that's what Natick did, right? They did not have the passing time and the bell.
Correct. Yeah. For grade 5, I think that they didn't use bells, and they so it just allowed for students to move differently in grade 5 and possibly grade 6,
Random
I
middle
think.
schools not have bells at all.
Yeah.
There's lots of middle schools that don't use bells.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that when we toured a couple of years ago, that was
Yes.
one thing that we had observed in other
Right.
5 through 8 schools.
It actually facilitates teachers making decisions about times of
Mhm.
so kids
Right.
can do projects,
Right.
do presentations and such.
Which we sort of, and working with the 5th grade teachers, I think that was important to them to be, they don't always,
Mhm.
they don't live by a 50-minute schedule like middle school teachers do. So, and that seemed really important to them when we met with them.
And does that increase the time on learning, which I know we're already above at the Coakley, but that.
It does,
As more
indeed.
time.
The
Yes.
children are so excited to add 6 minutes to each class. Tell them about it all the time. I think it's like 5 or 6 minutes to each class gets added, which to teachers we're like, yes, that's so much time. And children are like, oh my God, that's so much time.
And they're on a separate floor too, right?
There are 4 different floors
4 floors, yeah.
that I
So-
can see behind my school every day now when I look out back. It's very exciting. So 5th grade's on the bottom floor, and then 6th and 7th and 8th.
So it's not as if there's 2 different traffic patterns going on.
No.
Yeah, in the same floor.
No. So just kind of talking about welcoming grade 5 in. So adding grade 5, we wanted to give them more access to specialists, more diverse content time, while still kind of remaining that elementary feel. Working with the grade 5 teachers, they were more interested in a 4-teacher team than a 2, which we had sort of originally talked about. However, they would still have sort of a homeroom teacher that's their primary educator, that's their go-to person, their parents' go-to person, the same way that they have now. But would allow for some more specialized instruction in math and reading. I believe in most of the elementaries now, I know I have an elementary person over here who can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they already like change for reading groups and things like that, and sometimes for math as well, just to allow a little bit more diversity in that. And then I'm not going to lie, my social studies and science department chairs and teachers are very excited because now they would actually have time and space for social studies and science every other day. So like social studies and science and social studies and science, that does not happen quite as consistently right now at that level. But using the 4-teacher team and having actual science classrooms for all grade 5s would allow for a little bit more of that. We have made it so that students would have STEM and computers as additional essential arts classes to what they have now. And then an introduction to world language that we're still kind of toying with what we want that to look like, but we dedicated some time for that within the schedule. So this is what a grade 5 schedule would look like. So they sort of have 6 blocks as well. And what's, this is me writing it as a person doing the master schedule, not necessarily as how a 5th grade teacher might write it. But so we blocked out what we knew that they needed to have, which was writing, reading, math, science, and social studies. So the 5th grade teachers, as they, we'll talk about next steps, as they work together, would really create that piece of the schedule. What would be part of the master schedule for all would be that you would see block 4, they would have a special, block 5, they would have a special on that A day, on that B day, it's block 1 and block 2. For any of you who I've talked about rotating schedules before, and if you experience one, it's really hard to describe and show on a spreadsheet, but essentially it just dedicates time. And some things that were really important was making sure that our grade level teachers all have common planning time every single day. So currently right now in the middle school, every teacher has common planning one time a day and they have a prep one time a day, because those are 2 very different things. And we wanted to maintain that they had common planning time, which means all grade 5 teachers have 1 block off at the same time. Their second time, which is their prep, does not have to be at the same time, because I don't need to prep at the same time as the other teacher, but it was really important that we had 1 at the same time. And then we are moving to trimesters, because it allows for more essential art classes, in particular over the 4 years. So that would be a change for all 4 grade levels. We'll go to trimesters. Right now we are on quarters. So just kind of dig into the trimesters here. So you see this is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, sort of that same idea of where do we put these different specials at. And then we kind of dig into what we are putting in each one. And the numbers that you see, if you look at the different charts on the right-hand side of the screen where it says like art/wellness 3090, that's the number of classes that they would have. Because what we wanted to look at was how many sessions. We want to make sure that we weren't losing the number of sessions that they had previously had. And we were actually able to add sessions to just about every subject area across the 4 years. So some years might have less than they currently have now, but when looking across all 4 years, the total number of classes in all the essential arts increased. So you can see like wellness, it was important, we thought, for our youngest kiddos, our 5th and our 6th grade, to both have wellness for the entire year. And in this case, they would have it every other day. How we do it, we have 1 health for every 2 gym classes, and they kind of rotate between those. Music every other day for the entire year, and then world language. I think I might have forgot to put grade 5 on here, and I apologize for that, or I had it on the last, I think I had it on the last slide.
Yes, there's on that side.
So as you can kind of see, it kind of divides up what we're having, and so the amount of world language that we have in grade 8, which is every single day, which is really important, we maintained that. In grade 7, it's every other day, grade 6, every other day, and then we added, I believe, 60 classes of world language in grade 5. Art we maintained at the same level. It goes down a little bit for grade 6, but it increases in grade 5. So again, looking at it across the 4 grade levels, it increases across the board. And 8th grade looks a little bit different because it's currently different right now. Music is an elective in grade 8. So if you are a student that chooses to take music, you end up getting a little bit less of wellness, STEM and computers, and art. If you do not take music, then you get larger amounts of those 3 subjects, if that makes sense. So then we come to staffing requests to do all these things, and kind of came up with 2 models. The one that you see on your left-hand side is what we need to open the building. A couple of things, I know you all know this, but for anyone out there that's watching, we did this with only moving the 12 FTEs of grade 5 teachers up. Like there are currently 14 grade 5 teachers. We didn't take all of those FTEs, we just took the 5. We did not try and piece out the portions of specialists across the board. So we're just saying, I open a grade 5, I get 12 teachers, what else do I need? Just to kind of put some framework on that. So we would need no core subject teachers because in the same model that we use, we only need 12 grade 5 teachers. We would need an addition of 1 wellness teacher. I currently have 3. If we want to do wellness for grade 5, period, we need to add a wellness teacher. There's really no ups or down about that. To add computers and STEM, we would need 1 teacher at a minimum. As you can see on the other side, we have 2. So 1 teacher means that we can definitely offer some amount of computers and or STEM, probably without also using that computer teacher as a computers technology facilitator. If we add 2, either 1 computers and 1, it would be like 1 computer and 1 STEM. We know we have better models. We probably have better student to teacher ratios. We can offer more in grade 5. And it certainly allows our computer teacher, my computer teacher right now does some tech facilitation along with teaching, and we would be able to do that even more so across all 4 grade levels. Music at a minimum, we need 1 because I only have 2 teachers. It's just not possible to have my 2 teachers teach that much music. And we would require elementary support in that model because currently grade 5 does ensembles, which is like small group lessons to learn an instrument. So we would have to pull teachers from the elementary in order to do that. How we would do that would be to do it during Mustang block because that's the only solid time that does not change throughout the week. So then elementary teachers could come up during that piece, which would make it, which would certainly make it more of a challenge to maintain the level of classes that they currently have at the elementary. If we add 2, that means we don't have to pull anyone for the elementary. It adds an orchestra teacher as well as either a general music teacher, or we have a lot of band kids, so more than 1 band teacher might be the place to put that. Inclusion for special ed, our current model is that we have 3 per grade level, 1 per team. Could we do it with 2? Lori side-eyes me whenever I say that, and I'm like, maybe. We probably really need 3 to maintain the level of service that we currently have for students doing inclusion. Miscellaneous is sort of like administrative staff. At a bare minimum, we would need an additional assistant principal. We need a guidance counselor for grade 5 in order to match what we currently have. The other pieces you see in there, Joe Kidd has asked us to add in an additional technology specialist. We currently have 1 at the middle school to add another grade level with 1-to-1 Chromebooks. This person would be shared between us and the high school to provide the additional support for the 1-to-1 management sort of across the 2 schools. The .85, I currently have 1 full-time secretary. I'm going to say that again. I have 1 full-time secretary at the middle school and 2 part-time, and the .85 takes my 2 part-time and puts them up to full-time for 1,000 students, which I think we kind of need. Art, we need 1 teacher regardless in order to provide art in grade 5. And then we are looking to bring 3 programs in or take. So part of the issue with programs, as you may be aware, is age limit. And the age of 5th grade versus the age of 8th grade comes very close to the 3-year limit. Am I correct? 48 months, thank you. Limit. So we would need to add, I believe we were looking at add PACS, task, and week. PLC.
So the way we kind of worked it out is we're looking at FY25 need, FY26 need, and FY27 need. based on enrollment as it increases up. So we would need a task teacher, a PLC teacher, and eventually a text teacher.
So I think we put 3 to start and then other ones coming at later. So the total on the basic is 12 FTEs, and then on the robust, which allows, I think, for more growth and less asks down the road, is 17.85.
So, okay. What was WL again? Sorry.
World language.
Oh, world language, okay.
Did I skip over world language? Because I feel like I did now that you just asked me what WL was.
No,
So
you
we
had
need a world
explained
langu-
it.
I did.
Yeah, you had explained that you're still working out what world
I'm
languages
just
look like.
trying to talk really
but-
fast because I was told I don't have that much time.
No, you have plenty of time. You have plenty of time. That was more towards us.
Margot, so you said a couple things that I just want to emphasize. Sorry, Joan. So one is that currently there's 14 fifth grade teachers. This is moving 12 of them, and a conversation that we had in the budget subcommittee at length, and you can see in our minutes from that meeting, is we are assuming those other 2 current fifth grade teachers are going to be needed somewhere in K through 4. So initially there was like -2 on here, but we were, realistically, there's no minusing going to happen because of the needs of our students and the growth of some, like our 3rd grade cohort right now is really large.
Right.
So we are assuming that those 2 positions are going to need to stay in the K through 4 model somewhere. And that's a little bit different than how we talked about this 2 years ago when we wrote the ed plan. We had thought that there would be some absorption of staff. We don't think that's true anymore. The other thing that...
No, so hold on, because I
Yeah.
want to ask a question on that. So if we know that we have expansive grades, we know we have some grades that are busting at the seams, it should be fairly easy to identify where those 2 are going to go.
Yes, we have not done that yet, and that might also be part of the elementary study. But just where we started so far was that we know they're likely going to be needed, so we didn't want in this presentation and in this work to say there will be 2 less, and then in a couple months from now say, oh wait, actually, we know we need them at the elementary level, because I think we can
Yeah.
safely say we
No.
need them at the elementary level.
My only point is going to BBC and saying, well, we think we're going to need these 2 FTEs. It looks like we're trying to do a sleight of hand.
Oh no, I can tell them where we need it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is saying like, look, we, right now, it's the 4th grade or the 3rd grade or whatever class.
Yeah.
Who did we approve at the Oldham last year? Whatever class that was. What class is? The 3rd, thank you. I'm like, whatever class keeps coming to us at the Oldham and needing to expand because there's so many people. Can we just tentatively say this is where that teacher's penciled in for? I just think it's prudent for us to do that.
Yeah, we can share the enrollment sheet too, and like what you see right now
Yeah.
is our grade 1, 2, and 3 are larger than our current grades 4 and 5. So that's another reason why, if that continues to happen, we're likely
We
going
need
to
the
need those 2
people.
Yeah.
teachers at the K through
Right.
4. And then the other thing that you said, Margot, that I think is really important for people to understand is this does not take away the current special teachers at the elementary level.
No, it does the opposite.
And I know you said that, but I want to emphasize
Yeah.
because I know there's a lot of concern, and we don't want to take away from K to 4 to do 5 through 8.
Correct.
And the way that the specials program happens at K through 4 is very complicated, and they're already split between 2 to 3 buildings, and there's not a way to take a current art, gym, music, librarian, and move them. So that is also why these numbers are higher.
That was one of my concerns too, or a concern that I'm aware of. So when you mentioned the music under scenario A would need elementary support, that's the question I had, is that just meant sharing a person, not taking away?
No, we
Does it
would
still mean not taking away from their programming, but that
not
person
taking away from their programming just means that for
using them?
half an hour a day, I need 4 people who play instruments. I'm not a music person. People who play instruments to show up at the middle school, teach instruments, and then go. So it certainly stretches our resources, shall we say, a
Right.
little bit to say, hey, you're going to go do this elementary and then go to the middle school and then go to, and then go back to a different elementary school to do that, as opposed to if we have 4, they could actually maybe expand the music program at the elementary level at that point, because we don't need to pull that staff for that time period.
And then 2 other quick points, just so everybody understands. Some of these staffing requests Margot had asked for FY24 and FY23, and it was our plan 2 years ago when we wrote the ed plan to gradually get some of this in, and a lot of things have happened, and that was not possible, but she did previously identify and ask for an increase in the secretary, and also an increase in the guidance counselor, correct? Those two areas?
No, guidance counselor would have been an added 2025.
Oh, okay.
Computer teacher,
okay.
computer teacher, and the music teacher, because we only have
Music
two.
teacher, okay.
We currently only have 2 music teachers, and to have a full music program, we need 3.
Yeah. And then the last point, just so everybody can consider it, cost. And obviously, this is where we have to go back to BBC and hopefully work some magic with our counterparts on the town. But we were averaging in the budget subcommittee that each position is roughly $60,000. There's some give and take there, but just to give us an estimate, to add 12 FTEs is $720,000 every year, because as Margot said, this is not just a one-time that goes away. And to add the 17.85 FTEs is roughly $1,071,000.
And then my last slide is just kind of talking about our next steps is once the things that need to be voted on and approved and are recommended and kind of go through that process, you know, we continue to meet with the scheduling committee to go over final drafts, kind of fight through push through and figure out those little things, work on grade 5, like kind of what happens within their big blocks that they have. We're still kind of looking at cohorts for grade 5 and 6. We have talked about making grade 6 a little bit more elementary, a little bit less middle school, but being that really nice transition year between elementary and middle school, whereas now they kind of just go straight up into middle school, which is okay. And then fall and winter of 24-25, so kind of once final staffing, our ads determined and budgeted, start to create drafts of the schedule for grades 5, 6, and 7, 8 in Aspen, really looking at what we can do. Because honestly, like it's really not until we put it into Aspen and make the computer start to like think through the things, the computer says, yeah, no. No, you can't do that, or, oh, actually, yeah, you can do that, or you have a little bit more of this, or we can start to separate things out. And then I'm very aspirational for the spring and summer of 25. We're going to create schedules, we're going to solve all the problems, it's going to all be just perfectly, and children will all walk through the door, and we will just start 5 to 8, and it'll be amazing.
You didn't say solve all the problems, you just said solve problems. So you're not, that's not too out of line. Come on, you didn't say solve all the problems.
Margot, I think I heard you say
Can
it
you back up one slide for our discussion?
as an aside, but what's the population? What's the student count going to be in 2025?
It's around 1,000. We average about 250. I mean, as Teresa noted, when we have those bubbles that kind of come through, I'm fascinated to see what sort of bubble we'll be getting from our 2020 to 2023 babies. I think it gets up to, if current staffing stays the same, like the current 3rd grade is around 300, the 2nd grade is close to 300. Like 270. I'm thinking of these numbers in my head, not looking at a spreadsheet.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on spot.
No, that's okay. So generally,
Well,
I would say 1,000 to
So-
1,050.
The current 5th grade is 267, current 4th grade is 260. The 3rd grade, our bubble, is 292. 2nd grade is 279, and grade 1 is 288.
And our
So-
past experiences, those numbers, they tend to relatively stay the same. Like they don't.
Yeah.
So it would be the current grade 3 through 6, right? That's in the new building?
Yes.
So right now, if nobody moves in, moves out, we're at 1,085, which is over the number, which I've been saying as we wrote the ed plan. We're going to be over the number the day we open this building.
They're small.
Not when they turn 12.
Oh, good.
5th graders are small. 5th graders are small.
6th graders too. You should see some of them.
The 7th grader is about to pass me. He's not small anymore.
No.
So I believe what we need to vote on is the staffing request for this evening. So I'm going to redirect us. I'm working here. I'm going to redirect us back to the staffing request. Does anyone have questions about the staffing request? Either staffing request, the basic or the robust. I have a question. Sorry, I was trying to be polite. So you said that you needed an assistant principal, but there's no explanation as to why. Could you talk about why you would need to add an additional assistant principal?
Sure. So I currently have
Other
2.
than 1,085 middle schoolers.
Well, I think that there are 1,085
But
middle
if you could
schoolers.
talk a little bit about what they'd be doing.
Yes, absolutely. So currently I have 2 spread across 3 grades, and they spend the majority of their time doing discipline, not leaving a lot of time for instructional leadership. I also kind of have to dig into there as well. We have a great middle school. We have great middle school kiddos, and they still don't necessarily have fully functioning frontal lobes. So they make bad decisions on a
Not
fairly,
until post-college.
fairly regular and robust pace. So we feel like adding an assistant principal that can focus primarily with 5 and 6 allows us to then have an assistant principal that is dedicated to grade 7 and dedicated to grade 8, hopefully allowing the principal to do more instructional leadership and all 3 of them to add into that instructional leadership piece, whether it's leading student support teams, our PBIS Tier 2 teams, as well as just doing, professional development and evaluation. So with the addition of 250 kiddos and with the increased needs that we are seeing in terms of mental health of students and behaviors with students, we are having an amazing year with kids, just kind of feels a little bit more kind of back to sort of regular pace, but they still make mistakes, they still need help, they still need that mental health support, which is the guidance counselor that's under there as well, is the more that we could add to that, the more.
Would it be fair to say that adding an assistant principal will help? There's a lot of concern in the community about the discipline.
Yep.
And I think everybody recognizes that, students are coming with increased needs, but it's fair to say that adding the assistant principal would significantly impact the amount of
Oh, yeah.
time that administrators have to work with discipline and those types of issues.
Yes.
Great.
The general rule of thumb is one administrator for every 250 kids.
Okay.
So you are still over that if you had 4 administrators in that building.
Which is also the recommendation for guidance counselors.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
feeds into your request for another
Correct.
guidance
Yes.
counselor.
And then I have another question, unless somebody else has a question. No. What's the middle road? So there's a big difference between 12 FTEs and 17.85 FTEs. What's if you could only get 14?
You're gonna make me play Sophie's Choice right now?
No, I'm not going to make you
All
play
right.
Sophie's Choice. I'm just going to say it would be worthwhile. Maybe can you give us the top? I'm not going to say 10.
Say 10.
He's egging me on to bring you lower. But instead, why don't we look at what are like the top 3 or 4 priorities? So that's not saying, because there will be a lot of people who will still be included there, but what are the top 3 priorities?
So the ones that would, if we do not have them, it would result in a lowered level of service.
Yeah.
Across the board. Certainly wellness. I don't know what we would do, because literally I'm required by law, so every kid would probably get down to a trimester of wellness. So that would be one, if we want to look at that in between the two. Like computers and STEM, it's one of those hard pieces, because I think we all live in the world that we live in. If I say like, yeah, you could not do those and we wouldn't add computers or STEM to grade 5, and we would probably be able to maintain the STEM that we have in 6, 7, and 8, and I might have to reduce, because currently we're barely serving grade 7 with computers, just based on the number of students and the number of teacher that I have. So, but that would be an area. Music, I think we've talked about.
Yep.
Sort of that possibility in there. World language, we would make the decision not to add world language to grade 5, which I think would be a loss across the board. And again, these are, I feel like I'm tugging on like the skills that we know kids need.
Yeah. No.
To be successful. And then, I'm really hoping my secretaries aren't listening to me right now, but yeah, I guess if we don't need to add more secretarial staff, like I can just continue to be a really well-paid secretary.
Can you
at
tell us
school.
what the secretaries do at the middle school?
Oh my God, what do they not do? So they greet every single person that comes in the door. They manage guidance. So that would be anyone that comes in, anyone that goes out. We usually, last year, we had a rotation of 100 students during the school year alone of withdrawing and entering. They manage busing, getting things out to students. They manage attendance, which is attendance for 1,000 students, where we notify every parent of every student that is marked absent in the building. They help do everything, anything that goes into a computer, they help to do, anything that goes into Aspen. They run me, so they run all of us. Like, I mean, they truly run the school. And, you know, when I started, I had 1.75 secretaries, and that meant that they worked a whole lot of time that they weren't necessarily paid for. And then special education is
Required.
100% dependent on like the number of kiddos
Yeah.
that we have and the needs that we have, and getting a little stuck there.
So
Any other questions?
Could I give you a little bit more information as you're thinking this through?
Sure.
So right now in the 5-year projections, which there's still a lot of work being done, and we're not quite in agreement with all the 5-year projections that the town put forth, but right now, and this is in your packet under the BBC update if you want to see where I'm pulling it from. Currently, Mr. Mizuko has an increase for FY26, which is what we're talking about, for additional Coakley staff at $500,000. So that is under either scenario, and I believe that also included what Mr. Riccardi told us, which is 2 custodians. There will also need to be an increase in staff with food services, but that's covered under the revolving fund, so that won't hit the operating budget.
Where did that estimate come from, Karen?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's why I said
So
we
it's an
don't know where it
estimate
came
that,
from.
it's a true estimate versus.
Yes, I'm just sharing with you,
It's a
like,
placeholder.
as we take
Thank
this
you.
back to BBC,
So they
like,
have
that,
500,000.
he has budgeted right now 500,000.
And scenario B is over
Uh,
it's $1 million, right?
The first scenario, 12 FTEs, is roughly 720,000, and then the more robust one of 17.85 FTEs is 1,071,000. The other piece of information to have that will also tie back into our BBC work is our Chapter 70 increase, because it's very possible that the increase that we get in Chapter 70 can cover this. But
Yeah.
that brings us back to the conversation of Chapter 70 increases should go to the school.
Okay, but that is not, I'm not gonna let us go down that path.
No, I'm just trying to give you all the numbers and
Yep.
how, like, Anne Marie and I have to take this back to BBC.
Is there any more discussion, any more questions about this?
No.
I have discussion. I think we owe it to our students to recommend this and try to make it work. And with the town, I think we owe it to the town who's making this investment to try to make it work in terms of programmatic, our staffing matching the programmatic potential, and to get the ball rolling, to have the discussion. So I think in terms of our step, you know, we push the ball forward and go from there. I mean, I understand that the discussion will continue and it may come back to us, but that's,
So are you making a motion to support the school committee reps bringing the robust plan to BBC?
yeah, I'll make that motion to support the robust plan.
Second.
Teresa seconds. Any more discussion?
Just one other point, and I'll make this at BBC. The town already showed their support for this, because if you read the ed plan, we were very clear in all of these programmatic decisions, and we had to work really, really hard. Dr. Frazek and Dana Brown at the time had tons of spreadsheets looking at space utilization and how every inch of this new building was going to be utilized. And in that ed plan, it talks about world language rooms. It talks about the dedicated space for student services. It talks about the Project Lead the Way and the STEM. It's all in that space plan, and our town overwhelmingly supported the override for this building based on those programmatic plans. And also, as a reminder, the state gave us a lot of accolades on our ed plan and said it was one of the best that they have ever seen. So I am ready to argue every one of these points.
Well, we might not have to.
Hopefully we don't, hopefully we don't need to. I think
Yeah.
the robust plan, as you put it out, achieves the goals both for the middle school, but also the aspirations we had for moving the 5th graders to the middle school
Right.
and allowing for more robust programming at the elementary school as well. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, and I'm also an aye, so that passes 4-0. All right, thank you, Dr. Frazek.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Double gold star, Dr. Frazek.
Dr. Thompson, you have enrollment grids for us, although I feel like we've already covered quite a bit of that, so.
Yes, yeah, so the enrollment
Here's
grids
a
are
softball.
in your packet, and if you look, I'm not gonna really pull it out, but if you look, you can see quite where the space problems are, like fourth grade at the Bulge. We have a space problem there. You know, there's not a lot of extra space. We've got a little bit of a problem with the Callahan numbers in grade 4 as well. You know, we don't have an extra classroom to put people in. You know, I constantly tell people we could have used this middle school yesterday. But those are the enrollment numbers, and we will keep reporting them out on the first of the month. I don't know if anybody has any particular questions that they want to.
I don't see them.
Was that a question, Kate?
No, I don't see where they're linked.
They're linked under
Oh, and the superintendent's report.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
You gotta hit on the big, yeah, she didn't do it as.
The big one.
Yeah, the
Alright.
big one.
Dr. Thompson, the classroom at the grade 4 at the Bulge, I know we talked about that. Were we able to get in additional aides or paras or?
Yeah, we've added adults into the classroom.
Okay.
But not added another class. There isn't a room to put them in, basically, is the problem.
Right, but we're meeting the needs of that higher
Yes,
class
yes.
in other ways.
Yeah, there's more often than not two adults in the room co-teaching. And small group instruction, which is the norm.
Any other questions for Dr. Thompson? Okay. Ms. Sheridan.
Oh, wait a minute, I was
Oh.
gonna, I have my
I'm sorry, it just says enrollment grid
Yeah,
on my
that's only
thing.
one of, that's just, it's supposed to be just a link, so.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
when I
Nope.
get nervous, I just.
Yeah, no, you're not getting up
I'm just
that
following
easy.
I'm following the list.
All right, hang on a second. All right, so superintendent's update, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about school happenings, some important things that are going along. Give a shout out to our marching band, our field hockey team, and other sports and how they're doing. A quick tech board update, and of course we'll talk about job openings because we still have some. So going through some of the schools at our middle school on the 6th of November, grades 7 and 8 Spanish students went on a field trip to see flamingo dancing performance. I'm sure that was a lot of fun. November 6th through 8, grade 7 social studies made artifacts as a good example of integrating our arts with our core academics, and you can see a couple examples of the artifacts there. And they then used the artifacts to do a gallery walk, which is where students will go around and see other examples of student work, which always is inspiring. The Willet on the 2nd of November had its first family STEM night. I was able to stop by at the beginning. There were several high school students who came down, especially robotics students, and did demonstrations for them. A lot of parents got a chance to use the ST Math pilot that we have down there, and it was very well attended, and a lot of excited kids doing all sorts of STEM activities throughout the Willet School. LMPA, they did have an open house. They're actually having an open house tomorrow for interested families from 5:30 to 7 for next school year, so they can come and they can check out the LMPA. And there are some limited openings for this year. We're trying to get some of our model students, increase our model students. And they are currently working to fill up our Thankful Thoughts turkey with all the things that they are thankful for in pre-K. You can see the turkey right there who is on the wall and getting bigger every day. At the high school academics, they held a successful prospective student open house on the 26th for grade 8 families and potential transfer students. You know, 8th graders have got to decide whether they're going to go to a private school, Blue Hills, or come to Norwood High School. Norwood High School has started doing an open house to try to show off what Norwood High offers. So they get a chance to meet with administrators, guidance counselors, see the co-curricular offerings, and get a taste of what Norwood High offers. And obviously the intent there is to keep our Norwood kids going to Norwood High School. It is actually one of the best comprehensive high schools I've ever seen, and I'm very proud of what that school has become in the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, so marching band, big shout out. The marching band won a gold award at the Micah Festival a few weeks ago. Congratulations to them. The field hockey team, I finally was able to coordinate my schedule with the field hockey schedule and attend the semifinals for the Division II state championship. It was an incredible game, strong Somerset Berkeley team. I don't know how some of these girls move that ball around like they do, but I was in awe. I still don't understand the rules, by the way. There's a couple moms trying to help me out, but it might be they will be playing for the state championship on Saturday at Worcester Polytech in Worcester. We don't know a time yet, so I will share that as soon as possible. The cheer team has also advanced to the state competition, which is this Sunday, so good luck and congratulations to them. And just as a side note, and I don't know that Mr. Longley will go through more details, but we actually had 4 teams this year qualified for the postseason. Obviously, our field hockey team, our cheerleading, but also football and volleyball. So I want to thank them for a strong season and representing Norwood so well. And again, all that work that we've done around the athletic study committee and increasing access and increasing access to the middle school, our high school students, athletes, doing workshops and with youth sports is starting to pay off. And I want to thank all our coaches and players for that as well. Cleveland has student council elections. Were held for 4th and 5th grade, and we want to congratulate Rosie in 2nd grade, who won lunch with the principal. You can see the picture right there with Ms. Hutchins. They had a fantastic lunch together. Both are smiling, another successful day, but congratulations to her. And you can see some of the other students campaigning there with their classmates, but the student councils are getting up and running. Also at the Prescott, also had student council elections as well. 3 through 5, you can see Just Do It, Vote Paul for treasurer. He ran a great campaign. Up at the top, you can see that the Character Strong Assembly, where they are recognizing kids for their monthly focus. This past and social emotional learning trait. This last month, they recognized students who demonstrated and went above and beyond the area of respect and kindness, and those are the students who won those awards. And again, taking the SEL just from something you do in the classroom to something that we are looking for behaviors in our students and recognizing and congratulating them. So tech board meeting, we had a quarterly update. There is a report in your packet. I'm not going to read it to you, but they are going to expand the data privacy. I think I mentioned last year that they were looking at adding Vermont. We are going to do a pilot in New York. And again, that is, getting a collaboration of, to negotiate student data privacy agreements with companies, and it really is a good revenue source for the Educational Collaborative, or TEC. Financials are in fantastic shape. They are fully staffed and running well. They did have a little difficulty with a heater in the building a couple weeks ago, but that has also been fixed. So TEC is in good stead and making progress. And then lastly, job openings. We are still looking for an assistant transportation director. We have a retirement mid-year. We're looking for an elementary library media specialist, confidential secretary to the school committee, special education teacher. I believe there's 2. There's at least one at the high school and there's one at the elementary level. Title I teachers. One is full-time, one is part-time. Paraprofessionals, van drivers, and extended day staff. We have added a few, 2 or 3 staff in the last week or so. So I want to thank extended day leadership for staying on task and trying to find people. So that is my report, Madam Vice Chair.
Any questions? No. Okay, then we're going to move on to budget. I am going to ask, with the permission of the committee, we do have number 2 in budget is the quarterly budget transfer report. That's a report only. We don't need to vote on that, and it is provided in our packet. Is it okay to scratch that from the agenda for this evening? If we have questions, we can email Ms. Sheridan. Hearing no objections.
I don't like to scratch anything budget, but that's just me. So if the rest of you want to scratch it, okay, but I'm a no.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we review that on our own and ask questions to Karen as necessary. All the information's provided in our packet.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, so that passes 3-1. Okay, so Ms. Sheridan, if you could just skip the number 2, the transfer report for the evening, but the rest of our time for the next hour or so is spent listening to you educate us on the budget. Thank you.
Okie dokie, here we go. We're gonna start with the budget updates. So Dave, I'm gonna have you slide to the next slide. So the FY '24 budget, $54,824,884 this year. Go to the next slide. This is my last budget to date report, so I wanted to change things up a little and try to give you a budget to date report that includes more strategies and analysis to be helpful for the remainder of the fiscal year, especially given the fact that this budget was built with various funding pockets. And so I wanted to go over that, some strategies, and a little bit more projection on the remainder of the year. Let's go to the next slide. So if you look at this slide, you've got the budget, you've got the actual expended, you've got the encumbrances, and then it has an available balance of negative $1,725,473. What I did with this projection is this includes estimates of all the salaries for the remainder of the year, the contracts like the buses, the copy machines, the out-of-district tuition to date, which remember is always ever-changing. So this is the out-of-district students that are currently placed and have a purchase order in the system. There's many expenditures funding remaining in them, so there's a lot of accounts that have funding remaining in them. But this is if, with the amount of expenditures and encumbrances to date, and again, not all of the budget, there's not a lot of the budget like the circuit breaker applied to it yet. So the percentage of the budget that expended today was 18%, and the percentage with expended encumbered is 103%. The budget offset that would be required at this point to balance this budget would be $1,725,473, and that would be to balance the budget. So we're gonna go over funding sources and strategies on the next slide. So, as I said before, that this year's budget was built with multiple budget sources. So I've got some sources here. So you've got your general fund, which I indicated, which was the expended, the encumbered, the balance of the negative $1,725,473. So if we added additional offsets of the $1,725,473, you get down to your projected zero balance budget. We have non-resident tuition, which is $47,235. So the non-resident tuition is, we have a student that from Dedham, I believe, that pays a tuition to go to the school, and that's the amount that we get for that. So that at this point, I would indicate that we would apply that entire amount, $47,235,000. That would be part of this $1,725,473. The circuit breaker is another pot of money that we have right now. So budgeted circuit breaker this year is $4,364,047. Thus far, we've already applied $1,377,224, which leaves a balance as of 10/30 of $2,986,823. So additional circuit breaker applied to get this to balance as of this point would be $1,678,238. That would leave a projected amount of the budgeted circuit breaker of $1,308,585. We also have a special education stabilization fund, and that amount budgeted for this fiscal year is $550,000. We have not utilized any of that yet, and with this balance, we would not be using that yet. And then we have warrant articles for special education. So this included the transportation warrant article, as well as the one that we got for other special education expenditures, which included some money from the homeless transportation, the Medicaid, and the free cash, and that was $2,359,643. So this fiscal year, is gonna be a little bit different than the previous fiscal years, because these pots are gonna have to be monitored for the year. So as the year goes by, you're gonna have to use more and more of these funds, because all of your budget is not the general fund. So you have, these are the major funds you have. And you also have your grants and your revolving funds, remember. But these are the major ones that really have to be monitored during the year. One more thing I wanted to say about circuit breaker is, as you recall, circuit breaker, you have 2 years to spend that money. So for this year, you're required by law, because it's the second year of these funds, to apply $2,699,929. So even though you've budgeted $4,364,047, if you didn't use all of that budgeted amount to apply to the budget, you at the minimum have to apply for $2,699,929. Next one. Does anybody have any questions on this slide? It's a little bit different than what we're used to seeing, because there's so many pockets this year.
Yeah, Karen, just that last column, the warrant articles. So 500,000 of that was for transportation. And that 500,000 was because we didn't get the vans in, and we told town meeting that if we didn't spend it all, we would return it. So that's something we definitely have to monitor separately. But the rest of the warrant articles, the 1,859,643, we don't have to return that, and we can use that. And that can be part of our bottom line authority this year.
Yes, that,
Okay.
You got confirmation today on that. I wasn't quite sure if that was the way that we were allowed to spend it, but according, Teresa got confirmation today with that.
Yeah, so I
So
just
that
wanted,
is good, because then you're not necessarily having to use all your circuit breaker budget if you don't have to.
Right.
So that's why I stay really monitored on these different pots during the year.
okay,
The best bet, obviously, is to try to hold on to as much circuit breaker as you can this year.
mhm,
And as you see in some of the future slides, you'll understand why I think this is an important year to try to hold on to circuit breaker
yeah.
as
And
much as
Karen,
you can.
can I just ask Karen, so I know you track a lot of this in spreadsheets. If somebody was just looking in Munis, would they know the level of detail that you have here?
Well, all of these have account numbers on them. There's a different account for circuit breaker, there's a different account for the non-resident tuition, there's an account for that sped stabilization fund, as well as the warrant articles. There is account numbers for them, and you'll be able to see the balances that are there.
Okay,
But the way that, like for example, the circuit breaker, the way I apply the circuit breaker is, as invoices come in, then I would apply them, take them out of the general fund and apply them to the circuit breaker. Normally, just to give you an idea of how different this year is, I don't even start applying that circuit breaker till about January. And we've already applied $1,377,224. And so, as the invoices are coming in, I've been applying them to circuit breaker. And it's a tough year, because there's so much money outside of the general fund that you have to keep making sure that you're utilizing these other warrant articles so that you don't become negative in your general fund. And that doesn't mean that, we're out of money. It's just that we have these different pots that we have to manage this year. So that's why I wanted it to really show this, so that you understand the difference this year is. Like in previous years, we had the sped stabilization fund the last couple of years, we had the circuit breaker. But that $2,359,000 of the warrant articles and the very large circuit breaker that we have budgeted for is what's making it a different year this year. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that you want to keep an eye on this during the year. If you go to the next slide, Dave. So this is the DESI, by the DESI function codes that we've been using in all the budget to date reports. Instructional services, again, the majority of the budget, 74.38%. The next highest is programs with other school districts, the out-of-district, 13.9%. I highlighted this as a watch area of concern, because we're not, right now, we're under budget, but it's very early, and I just watched that as an area of concern, because the more the out-of-district increases, the more you're gonna have to use more of your circuit breaker, and this is the year that you're gonna wanna try to hold on to as much circuit breaker as you can. Other school services, 7.75%, that's the nurses, transportation, lunch, athletic, and student services. I highlighted this as a watch area of concern in the past, but that was due to the difficulty with the supply chain for the vans. But happy to report that the vans are being delivered, and this has been improving. And the other thing is, Al has been able to hire some more van drivers, so I see great improvement this year in that particular area. The other thing is, when we knew we were having difficulty here, we did amend ESSER, and we have a couple of $100,000 in there for contracted service for transportation. So we're gonna use that first. We've already been using that, so we're using that first before we hit any of these other pockets. Administration continues to be a small piece of the pie at 2.68. Same with operation and maintenance of plants, which is 1.27. Benefits and fixed charges, 0.023%. That's the sick leave, vacation, and ER contribution to retirement. And finally, community services, which is at 0% at the moment. All right. Go to the next slide. Budget to date by major categories. So if you look at the expended and encumbered for the entire budget to date, the general fund is 57.27%. Special education is 39.09%, and EL is 3.64%. So just a little note on this. So you see how high special education is. It's pretty substantially high right there. But you gotta remember that this is really early in the year, and a lot of the circuit breaker hasn't been applied yet. So further down in the year, I do think that special education will not be as high. It certainly is gonna be, we've seen it rising over the last few years, but I don't think it's gonna be almost 40% of your budget. That's because you haven't utilized a lot of the circuit breaker yet. The payroll to date, if you look at just payroll, general ed is 65.45% of your budget. Special education, 30.15%. English learners, 4.41%. And then payroll versus expenditure, again, payroll is 81.32%, expenditure is 8.68%. We've talked about this before, you got just a really heavy payroll budget. All right. Next slide. This is an estimate of the staff to date. This is also been ever-changing. So currently, general education is 327 full-time equivalencies, which is 53%. Special education is 261, which is 43%, and EL is 24.4%. So I have an asterisk there because special education 261, this includes the special education drivers and monitors. So that's bumping it up, that special education is getting pretty high on the percentage of the total staff. To date, the after budget school committee approved positions of 5.1, and currently you're able to cover them with your higher dime savings, which currently is at 208. Next slide.
Karen, do you have it in front of you? Can you tell us what those 5.1 positions were? Can you remind us?
What they are.
Yeah, do you have them in front of you?
I do have it somewhere. There's some Tara's, and they're all special education.
Right, okay, that was the major point. They were special education, not general education that we have added.
I have them right here. There's LMPA special education para of 0.3. And 2.8 special education paras in various locations. You have one special education teacher at the high school, and then another special education para at Allen.
Thank you.
I have a lot of papers here, and I'm a little bit unknown territory out here in Vermont, so it's a different night. Okay, if you have any other questions, otherwise I'm gonna go to funding source. All right, next slide. So circuit breaker, for FY23 carryover was $2,699,929. The revenue to date is 0 because we haven't received any yet. We should be receiving some soon if we have not yet. The year-to-date expenditures, $1,377,224. So the balance to date is $1,322,706. The anticipated revenue for FY24 is $3,729,703. The out-of-district students, we're currently at 71. Again, that's the people that have been, the students that have been placed in an out-of-district and have a purchase order in the system. And the budget was 74, so thus far you're down 3 students. We were able to prepay out-of-district tuition in FY23, so we prepaid $402,737, so that FY24 tuition is paid in FY23, and that should be a big help for you this year. And then the Special Education Stabilization Fund, the balance is $700,000, and your offset is $550,000. And we have not used any of that yet. We still have that available for you right now. Next slide.
Hang on, Kate has a question.
Quick question, so for the 71 to 74, for those students, did that go down this year from 74, just to be clear? Or we just haven't that was an estimate that we haven't hit yet, hopefully we won't, but.
It was budgeted at 74,
Yep.
It's currently actually 71. If I was a betting woman, it's not gonna stay under budget. I think you've got, if you talk to Larry Semino, there's some students that possibly might be placed, but they have not been placed yet. So, this is really early in the year for that, and currently you are under budget. I don't anticipate that staying.
What was the number last year?
You were over 80 last year, but there were some, I believe some might have graduated, some might have moved.
Okay.
So it's various
Graduated, some
reasons for
aged out,
calendar.
and some came back to district. So when we did the 74 budget, that we had 74 bodies at that time that were out of district when we planned, but some kids have come back in district, which has us at the 74.
Great, okay, thank you.
And this is the Q1 number,
Right.
but we're already into Q2. Laura's been coming to most of our budget meetings with an update. I know she's coming tomorrow. Don't know what you're going to tell us yet, but I know you're telling us something. She has been keeping us up to date. But yeah, this is the end of Q1, but we are already into Q2.
Thanks.
Okay, next slide. Circuit breaker through the years. I felt it was important to go through this again. There's going to be a lot about the circuit breaker tonight, only because it's something that I really think is important for everybody to watch this year. So if you look at this slide, you see from FY18 to FY23, we've been seeing the circuit breaker increase. We've been seeing the number of students increase. The reimbursement rate, luckily, has been 75% from FY20 to FY24. But this year, transportation was reimbursed for 57% instead of 75%. If you look at the FY23, I have a star there. I'm sorry, the FY24 budgeted. We budgeted for $3,805,310. That was an estimate. What we actually got in was $3,721,703. So not a bad estimate, fairly close. If we project out for FY25, And we had the same total reimbursement, and we used the same circuit breaker that applied. You'll see that the balance at the end of the year is down to 1,431,242. So that's why I say it's a red flag, because if you continue on this trend of these high circuit breaker budget adjustments, you're gonna deplete your circuit breaker. And we're gonna be having more on this in future slides, so I don't wanna take too much time here, because you'll see as we go on one of the next slides going forward. But this just gives you a history of the circuit breaker. The revolving funds,
Tell me you must have a 0 on the first one.
the revolving funds, there are 7 full-time equivalency employees paid out of the revolving funds currently. There are, let's see, 0.78 of them are coming out of the transportation, and that's a .30 financial analyst and a .475 assistant dispatcher. There's 5.7 coming out of the preschool tuition. That's a teacher, 4.6 paras, and a .1 financial analyst. And then there's a .6 financial analyst coming out of extended day. That 7 does not include all of the extended day staff. That's just, I just include the financial analyst in that. That's the .6 financial analyst. All right. So here, the revolving funds are in pretty good shape to date. Here I've got the balance to date for the revolving funds with budget offsets and the FY24 budget offset. 2 that I would say should probably be just a watchful eye on is transportation and athletics. For transportation, we had that budget offset should be lowered to the 200,000. But we're gonna watch it. I had lowered it to 200,000 in the budget, but then Rhonda did the transportation purchase order, she put it in at the 300,000, so I figured we'd watch it and see if we possibly could handle that. But it's gonna be a watch, because at the balance to date is 2,102. Our preschool tuition is in good shape. That's clearly gonna be able to handle the budget offset. The balance to date is 202,750, and that still is a lot of revenue to come, because it's 10 months that we collect that revenue. Athletics is 103,035, with a budget offset of 100,000. Drama, 34,188, budget offset of 17,000. Music, 11,990, with an offset of 17,000. And those have already been putting expenditures to them, so the music is lower, but they've also used a lot of that, some of that. The circuit breaker, again, we have not gotten our reimbursements in to date, so that balance is low, but it is definitely not gonna stay that low. And then the sped reserve, as we talked about, 700,000 is the balance with the 550,000 budget offset. The next slide. So the grant's an important revenue source for the district, allowing the district to find additional staff and fund additional staff and expenditures. So FY24, approximately 38 grant employees to date. The benefits and pensions are paid from those grants. And you can see that the grant awards for 24 are $2,619,408. There's 16 of them, 16 grants, and 18% has been expended to date. FY23 is $2,622,423 of the grant awards. 24, 88% has been expended to date. FY22 had 25 grants, 81% is expended to date, and that's only because ESSER 3 still has some funding available. Other than that, all the other grants have been expended to date, as have FY21 and FY20, 100% have been expended to date. As you remember, the higher awards, the COVID years, FY22 and FY21, and again, ESSER, the only challenge I say with the staffing for the grants that you should monitor is the ESSER 3, which has 10.25 full-time equivalency staff that the funding will be ending this year. But the rest of the stuff, I don't anticipate to be a problem. A lot of those grants you get every year, like the title grants, 240 IDEA grant, 262 grant. It's the S3 funds that has the difficulty with those staff, and we've already talked about that in the 5-year budget. And next slide.
Karen, I just want to help
Yeah,
everybody make, no, I just want to like connect some dots for everybody as you're talking. So this slide and the previous slide, the positions funded through grants and revolving funds. If we look in our packet in the very detailed spreadsheet that you gave us for Q1, which this is what it looks like if you print it out. This is the whole entire Q1 report. But every single position in revolving funds and grants are listed for us, and that's important because this is something that they're going to ask us for at BBC. So all of us should know where to find this information.
It also, there, on that report, it also shows you the end date for each grant. So you'll know when those grants are ending. Just keep in mind that some of those grants allow you to carry them forward to the next year. Title grants, IDEA grants, the special ed grants. They often, if you still have money left, you're allowed to extend it over to another year. All right, next slide, Medicaid. So the Medicaid for 23 was 310,628. For FY 24, we've only thus far gotten the first payment, which is 84,936. I do anticipate similar revenue in FY 24 to FY 23. And as we all have been indicating in all these reports, FY 22 was that year when they made the changes to the Medicare program. You're not going to see that really high spike like that with Medicaid. One way to increase your revenue for the Medicaid program, one of the things that Norwood has not been doing is there's some direct certification in the therapists. It's a lot more work that they would have to do. It entails a lot of more work than from the SPED department and the therapist. And that's one of the areas that is not being done currently with the Medicaid program. However, the majority of the therapists are being paid out of the IDEA grant, the special education grant. And the Medicaid program does not allow you to double dip. So you would not be able to do that with therapists unless you could get those therapists into the general fund and out of the grants. So that is one way that you could increase your Medicaid for the future. But right now, that's a tough one because you've got a lot of your therapists in the grants. I continue to recommend working collaboratively with the town to try to get that Medicaid reimbursements to the special education stabilization fund each year. And that you could work that as a warrant article each year at town meeting, transferring the Medicaid funds from the free cash into your special education stabilization fund. The only thing you have to remember on that is that you're only allowed to have 2% of your net school spending in that special education stabilization fund, so you'd have to monitor that. Next slide.
Karen, could I ask if we were to get the town?
Here, we're gonna do a
Karen.
little bit of budget challenges that are continuing.
Karen.
Go to the
Karen.
next slide, Dick.
Karen?
No, we're not. Can you hear us?
Do you have some questions?
Yeah, sorry, Karen. The recommendation you just made around Medicaid and as a warrant article, if we can get the town to agree to this, and if we were in a situation where we already had the 2% of net school spending in the SPED reserve fund, where could we ask the money to go to still get it if it couldn't go in our SPED reserve fund?
Well, why would you start utilizing the special education stabilization fund and try to, if you could use that, keeps a little bit more of your circuit breaker. I mean, it's over $1 million. It's 2% of your net school spending. So right now you have like, what is it, 700,000 in it. If you're budgeting 550 and you're only getting like Medicaid was 310.
Mhm.
it- If you keep doing it like that, I don't foresee it to be a huge problem of
Okay.
moving it in there. But I don't know where else you could transfer that money into besides that special education stabilization fund, unless they allow it to increase your general funding budget each year. Part of increasing your general fund budget. But I mean, I think it's a good way to keep your special education stabilization fund kind of at that cap, so that every year, because we all know that every year you're going to have those unexpected special education expenditures.
Mhm.
There's never a year that you're not going to get something happening unexpected, unbudgeted, even though, you try your best to budget every year. As we've talked about, is a picture of time, and it changes, and you're going to see those. So I think it's a good way to just try to keep it capped as full for as long as you can with that stabilization fund. It's a good budgeting tool. It's like the other budgeting tool we tried to keep, which we've had a little bit of a challenge, which lately was keeping the full year of circuit breaker each year. So that's a good tool to be able to pay for those unexpected costs again.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody know where they are in the legislation on increasing the cap to 4% from 2% of net school spending? Like, we had advocated for that. Did that pause? Is that still in motion? Anybody know?
I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, so there was the bill to increase, like, Karen was just saying you can have 2% of your net school spending in the sped reserve. There was a bill to increase that to 4%. I just don't know where that currently is.
I
Okay.
haven't heard anything.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Okay, now we're gonna get into the budget challenges that continue. So here we have the sped transportation numbers that continue to decline. Some reasons it's not showing the numbers, but I'll read you the numbers. So the sped transportation numbers, special education transportation numbers, FY '21, there were 141. FY '22, that was 185 students transported. FY '23, it went to 229. FY '24, it's at 257. So it just keeps climbing. I don't know, the good part, as I indicated about the vans and the drivers, but those numbers just keep climbing and keeping Al and his department quite busy. The out-of-district student numbers, again, still an area to watch. But FY '21, it was 60 students. FY '22, 68 students. FY '23, we ended with 83. And the early count for 71 is 71 for FY '24. Next slide. So this is quite an eye-opening visual of the increase in special education students transported from FY '21 to FY '24. So thank you to Val Bishop, who gave me this great slide. The data is as of 11/9, and you can see the blue is the out-of-district students, and the color black is the in-house students. You can see it went from 137 to 257, and that's as of 11/9. It just eye-opening to me to see that difference in the years that I've been here in Norwood, and the change is just substantial. Go to the next slide. This shows some more detail from the transportation department. Again, thanks to Al and to Val. You see the inventory to date of the fleet of vans, the number of students, the number of students outsourced, the staff, the current staff. So to date, we have received 9 out of the 11 of the special education minivans, which is yay. Everybody do a real high five on that one. We have received 2 of the 3 wheelchair vans. So things are looking up. Please note that if you see the inventory, it's not like climbing, because a lot of those vans need to go out to pasture. They need to be gone because they're really tired, they're really old. and it's time for them to be retired. Again, the status of the drivers has improved. As of the last time I spoke to Al, he had enough drivers for his current fleet, and the number of students. He's currently outsourcing 6 students, but that may change as we get the vans in. And some of these vans have been delivered, but they're out getting the packages put on them. They have to have a special education package put on them. So once we get them all in, I believe he's gonna start pulling in these contracted services. And then remember that we have the ESSER refunding, that we've been able to use, $200,000 there for contracted services. Next slide. So here's the circuit breaker that I wanted to talk to you. So with this slide, I wanted to show you the importance of the reserves. And remember, the state that gives you 2 years to expend those funds. For the 4 years that I'm employed in Norwood, we have been attempting to keep a budget goal of having 1 full year of circuit breaker funds in the reserve. But with the current district trend of budgeting more of these circuit breaker funds, these reserves, in my opinion, are in jeopardy of being fully depleted in the near future. So this chart shows a projection. If you look at 25 and 26, the FY24 projected year-end balance, if we go according to the budget, would be a balance of $2,065,586. So you're starting that downward turn. And then FY25, if we kept the same budget for the circuit breaker, and we got the same amount of revenue in, you would end the year with a balance of $1,431,242. Okay, another downward turn. In FY26, again, if the assumptions are the same reimbursement, the same budget offset, you're down to $796,898. You're not even going to be able to do that full $4 million budget offset, and you're going to have a real difficult time with your budget if this trend continues. So I just wanted to make sure that you keep a watchful eye on this circuit breaker. Try to hold on as much as you can, because I think the best budgeting is to try to hold on to that 1 full year of circuit breaker. And the last couple of years have been difficult budgets for Norwood, so we've had to increase that, but you won't be able to do that forever. You're going to have to watch that because it's already starting that downward trend, and your balances are getting lower. So the other thing about that, if you have, unexpected costs that come in, it's going to be real tough to keep using circuit breaker. So this is one that I really wanted to place a lot of importance on because this is going to be the key for your budget going forward. All right, the next slide. I also wanted to look a little bit at net school spending. So Norwood continues to be over the required net school spending. So as you all know, the state gives you an amount of money that you're required to spend. And Norwood has been above that net school spending. However, the trend was upward until FY21, but now it appears to be slowly downward dipping. So if you look at FY22 and FY23, the numbers are not there. FY21, you were at 47.6% over the required net school spending, and then FY22 you were at 47.4%, and then down again in FY23, 42.2%. So that net school spending above is going down, but again, you are above the required. However, as you know, a lot of districts are above the required, and if you're just at the requirement, your district's having some difficulty. So currently for this year, the FY23, Dedham was at 77.6% over. Westwood was at 78.7% over. Walpole was at 43%, and Foxborough was at 39.9%. So just those two things I just wanted to, make sure that you're wary of. The net school spending, the more you use more the federal money rather than your own money, is where you're gonna see that dip going down. All right? And that's all I have tonight. If anybody has questions, I'm certainly here to answer them. Losing my voice a little.
Questions for Karen? Okay. Hearing none. Can we go to budget transfers? Can you walk us through the budget transfers that we are to vote on?
Yep. All right, so I have some school committee budget transfers. So one of them is $2,000 transferred from the civic contracted services, community services, and that is moving over to the administrative contracted services line, and that's to cover that ARCS ED, which is a negotiation tool. The only reason that's a school committee is because he's crossing over the testing function votes. Do you want me to read them all and then you vote for them all?
Is there a problem if we do them all at once? Okay. Yep, go ahead.
The next one is transfer budgeted funds to appropriate account for the
Enough.
assistant superintendent. So this is just, it was, the assistant superintendent was in a different account line before it got the new title. So this is just moving it from the admin salary to the assistant superintendent salary. That's $146,000 that has to be moved for that one. The third one is to transfer additional monies for conferences for Dr. Taylor and Dr. Menez. And that is going from the high school salary line, which had some higher down savings, and moving over to the workshops. And it's also covering a little bit of admin postage. So that is for the conferences and a little bit of postage. And finally, the last one is to transfer estimates of actual salaries and movement of staff. So there was some movement of staff that needed budget transfers over to the appropriate account line. So that's the last one, and that's $363,291. And those are the four that have to be voted by school committee.
Are there any questions for Karen?
Just a question for Dr. Thompson. The budget transfer around the conferences, is that something that we need to look closer at next year and budget more appropriately?
Yeah, I
or
think
what
that,
happened there?
when we started the budget process, we hadn't decided what the structure was going to be. So that's what that was, so we just needed to look at this time going forward.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the transfers?
So moved.
Second it.
Moved by David, seconded by Teresa. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0. And Miss Sheridan, last on your list before you can rest your voice, a grant for us to approve.
I have some new grants to approve. So there's the FY24 Social Emotional Learning Grant is a federal grant in the amount of $62,487. We have this Nursing Comprehensive School Health Services Grant for this year is $95,000. We have Research to Practice Evidence-Based Early Literacy Grant for this year. It's a state grant in the amount of $67,515. And there is a small EA Homeless Families Grant in the amount of $3,432. The total is $228,434.
Are there any questions for Ms. Sheridan around the grants to approve? Is there a motion?
Oh, sorry, no, I had one question.
Oh,
Just
sorry,
trying
go
to
ahead.
find it, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I had emailed it earlier, it was about the SEL grant, I think.
Social Emotional Learning Grant.
Yeah, is that part of the grant that will cover some of the money that we're getting in the pilot hopefully tomorrow, or this is, it is, okay, thank you. Okay, that's my only question.
Any other questions?
Was there a second?
Teresa, did you also second and then move into discussion?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Great. David motion, Teresa seconded, and then we had discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, 4-0. The motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Sheridan.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Stewart, Anne Marie is still on a plane, I believe, so you are going to take us through the budget subcommittee update.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'm gonna combine the next three, subcommittee, BBC, and town meeting, all into one.
Yep.
So in your packet, you have our minutes from our last budget subcommittee meeting. It was a marathon, 3-hour plus budget meeting. It's 11 pages of minutes. A lot of the things we've already heard tonight from Dr. Frazek and then Ms. Sheridan, so we don't have to dive too much into that. But we do meet again tomorrow morning at 10 as a budget subcommittee, just continuing all the work that we have been doing. We went to Budget Balancing Committee last Monday, and you have in your packet the updated projections. Again, these have come from Mr. Mizuko. They have not been verified by Ms. Sheridan or anybody in the school department, so we're still trying to work on correct numbers from our end. There's also a diagram in there that was shared at the meeting. Kind of confused about it, but apparently this is how some on BBC are thinking about how we should plan for the next budget cycle, but there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen on that diagram and how they have, the pots of money. I do not believe another meeting has been scheduled for BBC. I had to leave BBC a little bit early, and I've been asking other BBC members if a meeting has been scheduled, and I don't think it has. I did have to leave a little bit early, so I was not there for the discussion around Chapter 70. I don't know if Ms. Sheridan or Dr. Taylor or Dr. Thompson want to update the committee on that part of BBC.
So if I recall, there wasn't a kind of discussion. It was we need to have further conversation on how we're going to divide this up.
Okay.
And that's kind of where it was left.
Okay. So the work of BBC that we keep saying we need to do that we haven't yet really gotten to yet is what does budgeting look like for fiscal year 25 and beyond? Because as everybody knows, our override pledge ends in fiscal year 24, and we really don't have a current agreement on how the budget is going to be allocated. So that really is the next huge discussion point that has to happen at BBC in December.
Why, sorry.
Yep.
Why do they have a core budget, a sped budget, and EL budget?
I do not know, David. We did not create that. That was one of the questions I raised. I did not get an answer. I am not in favor of that. I do not know if others representing the schools are or not.
It's just like a huge step in translation. Like, it has very little to do with how we actually
How
do
the
it,
state
right?
legally manages
Hang on,
it.
Karen has her hand up.
Oh.
Karen?
Yeah, maybe Karen knows.
The only thing I wanted to say, I'm not sure if their intention was to be voted at town meeting separately, because you cannot vote on them separately. I believe it has to be one bottom line school budget, so I don't think you can do those separately. So I don't know if they were just pulling them out to note them that way, but when we do the budget, we always do kind of pull out special ed, EL, and general ed in the budget. I've been showing that even in the budget to date reports, but I wasn't very clear on whether they were going to, were you, Teresa, if they were going to be
No, I mean,
asking us to
we
have them
didn't
voted
see.
that way? Because that, I don't think that's allowed.
Yeah, we did not see this in advance, and it was just brought up on the screen, and I had to ask for it to be sent to us so that we would have time to analyze it. So I'm not sure where and how this diagram got generated. There's another diagram from a couple years ago that Maya have created that I'll try to find and show all of you that shows like where the money comes in, and then how we do share costs first, and then where money goes. So I think I think a visual is helpful. I think seeing how it has been done is helpful. I do not personally agree this is how it should go moving forward. And there's a lot of assumptions built into this. There's a lot of things not on there. Like if you look at all the different sticky notes, it doesn't address Chapter 70 at all. And obviously that is a big piece of what we keep saying we need to talk about. I am not in favor of 3 separate school budgets. And if that is something that the committee wants to give, myself and Dr. Thompson and Anne Marie more direction on and what you want us to say. Because if the majority of the school committee is in favor of that, then I need to know because I keep saying no.
I think we need, if I'm hearing everyone correctly, we don't have good clarification on the meaning behind this.
Right, but I still need some guidance because I go to these meetings and I advocate for what I believe, but I really need more input on the entire budget subcommittee, BBC, FinCom than I'm getting. So if what you see here seems problematic to you, I need to know that now, and we can definitely get clarification. But then I need to know, is the school committee in favor if they say to us they want 3 buckets of a school budget? Is that something we want to explore or not?
Can I ask a
You can ask
follow-up question with
you
a
and then
question?
Dr. Taylor. David and then Dr.
You go
Taylor.
ahead.
Okay, Dr.
I
Taylor
have
and
an
then
answer for
David.
you.
Okay.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
wow.
so-
It's like, Lynn just left the thing.
They've made 3 buckets, and I understand that it's how the budget is presented sometimes, but correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, don't we have to follow state law, which is DESI spending, I'm gonna get it wrong, what is it, DESI function code?
Yeah, I mean, the school committee votes their budget, which is a bottom line budget. So I believe you can only present the one school budget, which is a bottom line budget, and it's the school committee's budget. So you guys are the ones who have to bring it forward. But I don't believe you can do 3 separate ones.
Dr. Taylor?
I may be wrong, but I think it's a bottom line budget that has to be presented at town meeting to be voted.
Dr. Taylor.
It is a bottom line budget. This 3 separate budgets, this has come up several times in BBC since last spring as a strategy for budgeting. I just also want to highlight, one, we legally cannot do that, but also it opens us up to potential civil rights violations because these are
Sweet.
protected classes.
So, we should follow state law in budgeting, is what I'm hearing. The direction from the school committee is to BBC. Is that an accurate summary of what I'm hearing? We need to follow
Correct.
state law, which is a bottom line budget?
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yes.
Okay.
But just to reiterate, we still don't, a couple times people have said, we don't know what this means. So we don't know if they're asking us for 3 budgets, actually.
Well, it does say treat it as a separate fund, and I'm saying that my personal belief is we do not treat those as separate funds.
Yeah, I just don't know how they even think this diagram functions. Like, is it to acknowledge, the bottom line is they get what we have to do, they get our one budget.
The
Yeah.
bottom line is that
Yeah.
we're given a bucket, is
Right.
according to state law.
And
Okay.
this
So
will be
that's the
my,
direction.
last budget comment, and they leave out chapter 70. And chapter 70 is, aid that is, there's a formula for that, and especially if it's based off of student populations, that a city and or town then gets that money. To leave that out and just say, oh, it's a general budget thing is, I don't think transparent, but.
Okay, so it sounds like the direction is this does not work because by state law, we are given a bottom line budget. And in addition, we prefer not to open ourselves to the liability that may come along from potential claims of discrimination against protected classes.
Okay, I will continue to say all the things I've been saying.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to understand less about this until we see it align with state law. Or
Yeah.
that's just my feeling, so.
Yeah, so again, I just try to share, what we see at these meetings. We do not often get information in advance, so I can't elicit response before we go into a meeting. I can only share, post the meetings. But as soon as we find out when the next BBC meeting is and what's on the agenda, I will certainly let everybody know. We don't go to FinCom again until December 14th, and I'm again not sure if there's going to be a budget balancing committee before then or not. But the other item that I did want to talk about is the town meeting warrant articles. So as some of us know who were at town meeting on Monday, it did not finish in one night. So we do have to go back tomorrow night for night 2 at 7:30. And all of the school warrant articles are up next. We did not get to any of them. Because we have this extra time and because of the quotes that we received for the elementary study, which I know we're going to talk about later tonight, one thing that I did want us to dialogue around is if we should reconsider the amount that we requested for the student services audit. We have requested 60,000, and the Finance Commission had supported 60,000, and that's what they're planning to recommend to town meeting tomorrow. But given that, you know, in the elementary study, it looks like 60,000 may have been too low. And I'm wondering if we need to ask for more for the student services. And if we come up with a number tonight, I can let Maya know tonight because there is a FinCom meeting tomorrow at 5:30. And FinCom can discuss and vote on a higher amount before town meeting if that is something the school committee wants to put forward.
Yeah, good. I was gonna call on Karen because she actually got, so
Oh,
the
good.
special, the
Seems different.
student services audit is more normal than what our elementary study would be.
Okay.
So that those quotes that we got should be more consistent. Karen, you wanna comment on what we got?
We got a couple quotes. There was one that was very recent. Remember, Dave, top of my head, can't remember what town it
Yeah.
was. But the thing that I did wanna say, if this audit is just going to be, you know, special education services, or is it going to be pupil services? Because if it's going to be pupil services, then
Yeah.
that would be a different ball.
Yeah, it is gonna be student services, so it would
If-
include nursing and
If
counseling.
it's only student services, we did get a couple of
No,
quotes from
Karen, all
other
of,
districts.
the
And then I
warrant,
think we added a little bit on
No.
top of it, didn't we,
Yeah.
Dave? I'm trying to remember.
We did.
it is, the warrant article on the yellow sheet says it's the broad everything.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's not just special education, it's all of student services. And I worry that 60,000 is not enough, and we now have a chance to rectify that before we go back to town meeting tomorrow.
Right, but
What were the
just
quotes?
the student services piece was coming in at like 37,000 previously,
Just the special education, you mean?
just special education, right? So, I mean, adding counseling and nursing on top of that should not be,
Well, it's not just counseling and nursing, right? I mean, we said it was gonna be like 504s and mental health, and I mean, there's a lot. And, I mean, I know we're gonna talk about the elementary study, but there's a huge difference in those two quotes, one at 67 and one at 118, and what they offer. And I'm also a little worried that if we go with the lower quote, there's a lot of pragmatic pieces that we're no longer getting in the elementary study, that now I want to make sure we get into the student services audit.
Hmm.
So I really think we need to increase this, and we can tell the town, we'll return any unspent money, we do that all the time. And I think the Finance Commission is going to support us, and I really think we don't wanna blow this opportunity tonight to increase what we're asking for tomorrow.
What did we base the request on?
on two other communities' quotes.
Right, that
For
averaged
the exact same
40,000.
services?
For, well,
They were
for special
40,000.
education.
It was specifically sped audits, and they were about 40,000 apiece. the
Okay,
two
but
quotes.
not
That's
the
gonna be
additional.
it.
But they
Just
weren't
special
as
ed, only
comprehensive as
pupil
what-
services.
Right.
They
right.
weren't as
Just
comprehensive.
special
Right.
ed was about 40,000, we added 20,000 on top of that, thinking about a total student services.
Did we get any quotes around nursing, mental health, audits,
No.
anything like that? Do those exist? Are those like off the shelf, or are those customized that?
Those are customized.
Okay. So we either need a motion or we need some more discussion.
So-
What, were you asking for a vote?
I'm asking for us to increase the ask for tomorrow night, because
To
FinCom
what?
won't entertain it unless we vote on it.
For
Well,
s-
I was hoping, I emailed about this, I was hoping that there would be a number recommended by our admin team. I don't know what that recommended number is.
Do we have a recommended increase? No, okay,
Well,
so.
well, we originally thought the extra 20,000 would be enough, but that's fine.
So you still do?
So you want to move from sped to personnel?
I mean, I had,
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
you're saying,
that was, the special ed audits that we looked at in the area recently were about 40,000. We put in 60.
Okay, so it sounds like,
One
Right.
more question,
So
if I may.
if
Of
you
course you
wanna
can.
go
Right after Dave.
70 or 75, the idea that we would put it back and make sure we have enough money, then you're, I mean, I don't know if anyone's got a better guess.
okay, that's fine.
Revised, I mean, that was our guess.
Okay. David?
Back A month and a half ago.
David?
So in your conversations, FinCom says they would support this?
No, one person from FinCom told me that I should do it this way, and they believe there would be support. But it has to start with us. And if we did finish all town meeting on Monday, we would not have had this opportunity, so that's the silver lining. So now a night two. And again, I started to think about this when I saw the quotes for the elementary study come in, because we were told 60,000 was gonna be sufficient for that, and it's clearly not. And the fuller quote that does a lot of what we had wanted is at 118.
Right.
So Karen has her hand up. Karen?
Oh, Karen, you're muted.
You're muted, Karen.
That's the space.
Sorry. There was Stoneham had one done recently, it was 40,000.
But was that just special education?
Just special ed.
Yeah. So again, looking at the elementary study proposal that I don't think we're able to go with, which we're gonna talk about later, there was a lot in there that we had wanted that I think we now need to make sure we get into this one. So if that quote was at 118, shouldn't we be asking for like 100,000?
So I'm going to make a motion to double the quote to 80,000 with the promise that we would go back to, we would give any additional money back, given the fact that there's a number of custom items that are really difficult to estimate budget expenditures.
So just to clarify, John, the warrant article's currently for 60, so you're saying to go to 80?
Nope, I wanted to double, so I'll go to 120.
120.
Sorry.
Hang on. There's a motion on the table. It either needs to be seconded for discussion or it needs to die.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So, go ahead, Karen, we're seconded for discussion.
I just keep in mind that anything over 100,000, you have to go to bid.
Ooh. I'm going to retract my motion. Can I do that? I can't do that. I can't retract the motion.
You can't go to close, you have to go to bid, but you may want to go to bid, so.
Okay.
Well, that's a decision, I mean, we would have to, if we get this money, we have to go through the whole process we did the elementary study, quote or bid. So that's up
Okay.
for discussion, but that is a good point, that if you do 120, then we definitely have to do bid. But you can amend your motion, Kate.
I'm going to amend my motion down to 100.
So,
Second.
okay, for sake of discussion.
Yep.
One of the things that came up in the elementary study meeting, given our obligation, because we chose to go to put it to bid, and then our obligation to go with the lowest quote. There was discussion with the administrators in that meeting around how to utilize what that agency offers and accomplish some of our discussions around programmatic questions that are raised by the questions of redistricting, having fifth grade move up. And it was voiced by our administrators that whereas the demographic tools and the technology that would be used by this professional agency brings a certain level of expertise that we don't have, our educators in and of themselves have the capacity to, as a group, address questions around programmatic solutions and options. I'm unclear, so I wanted to put that out there because I want it to be spoken that there is expertise in that way, but an audit is something different. So I think both things are true. I don't think it's a completely, you're more saying, you're not saying we're going to do with this money what we're going to do necessarily, but that that learning from the process that the expense, it can be more than we thought.
Yeah,
We may not have
and that,
estimated correctly.
to be as comprehensive as we can, and just seeing the difference in those two quotes and what we're not getting now, I want to make sure we get everything that we
Okay.
really need out of this audit. Does that make sense?
Karen?
Teresa, on that warrant article, the way it reads, is it possible, because if you're going to be doing your audit, why wouldn't you want to just do all people services and get it all done?
We are, Karen.
But does that warrant article have to be changed in order to do that, if that's?
No, it already says that.
No, it says that already. So
Oh, okay.
it's a comprehensive review of school department student services. And then in the yellow language, it lists out all the different stuff. So special education, student services, nursing, mental health, it's all in there.
So in that case, if you're going to be doing it to the pupil services, then I would advise to increase it, because that was only, I don't know, it could be higher than the 60, but 40,000 was just special ed. We
Yeah.
thought it might be higher, but then, like you said, these elementary school studies higher too.
So what's your motion to go to 100?
My motion,
Or 890?
my amended motion is to ask town meeting for $100,000, given that there are so many there are pieces of this that are customized, and it's hard to budget and
Yeah.
estimate accurately. And then we give the money back if
And
if
just
we
to
don't use it.
clarify, is 100,000 the tipping point, or is it 100,001 when you have to go to the bay? Like, do we need, you know what I mean? Karen, sorry, is
You
100,000,
just have to let the bid, I believe it's 100,000 or more you have to go up.
100,000 or more? Sorry.
99,
99.
999.
I just didn't want it to blow back.
99, 999.
Okay.
But I think it's okay to.
Whatever we don't have to go out to bid for is the motion that I'm making. $99,999.99.
But
Can
if
we
we
not
ask
do
for,
that?
if we ask for the 100,000, we're not committing to the bid process right now. That just allows us, when we get to that next step, to be able to have the discussion we previously had of bid or quote.
No, if we go to 100,000, we're required to have the conversation. If we're under 100,000, we're not. We're not even required to have that conversation.
I'm saying by asking for the money right now does not commit us to when we send out the
Correct.
RFP. It
Correct.
gives us the ability to get to that conversation later, but gives us the funding now.
So let's leave it at 100,000. I can't believe we're fighting over a penny. 100,000 remains the motion. It was seconded by Teresa. Is there any more discussion? I'm no longer accepting amendments on dollars and cents for this. Any more discussion?
No.
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? And all abstentions? Abstentions. Okay. Anne Marie Mazzola has joined.
I just came in on, so I'll abstain.
Yep. Anne Marie Mazzola has joined
yeah.
us.
Hi.
So from now on, all votes will have to be via roll call, but that is 401. Passes.
John, can we take a quick recess?
Is the committee okay with taking a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
Maybe 2 minutes.
Okay, we are going to take a 5-minute recess. So we will be back here 5 minutes from now, which is 9:23. Okay, welcome back to the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are up to the Superintendent Search Committee participants list. So Ms. Sibbing-Dunn and Mr. Hiltz.
Thank you so much. Okay, so first I'm just gonna do a little recap and hear where we are, what's happened since our last update. Tonight, what we're gonna do is we're going to recommend to you, we shared out in a spreadsheet the recommendations both for staff and parents and town members that we recommend to be on the search committee for the superintendent search process. Since we last met, we have let the community and the community know about our public forum, or our focus groups, as we're calling them, as well as the community survey. And those survey results have been coming in. We've posted that to our Parent Square. We've posted up on the website. And as of today, we've posted the survey and the focus group information on the town website as well. And I believe on all of the social media, applicable social media channels. The survey will be open until December 1st. And then just so you know, the public forum will be November 29th. at 6:30 in the high school library. And members of the community are invited to come speak around some questions about goals for the district and goals for this position, what we think is important, what people are valuing. And then another focus group will be held just for staff that same day in the afternoon at Coakley Middle School at 3:45. All right, so on to the recommendations that we sent along. Just to recap, the criteria that we voted on and agreed to in terms of and asked for are for the parent group. We were looking initially for 4 parents to represent parents, someone from CPAC, and then make sure that we had as much of the grades, different grade levels represented. So we got a really great number of applicants. I just want to thank everyone in the community who applied for doing so and for being willing to commit your time to this. It's no less than going to be 5 long evenings of work, as well as some pre-work in terms of reviewing applications and things. So we really do appreciate that. The decisions we made were based on trying to make a rounded out group, both to represent different age groups, as well as when we considered letters that we got in terms of what people's backgrounds were, professionally, in terms of how it related to what the district does and their experience with collaborative processes, personnel processes like this. So we have, for CPAC, someone that also represents someone, sorry to be repetitive, someone that also overlaps with, has pre-K experience, recent pre-K experience, and currently has a student at the Oldham. We have a parent from the Callahan who is an educator herself and has served in a lot of different capacities, a paraprofessional, classroom teacher, instructional coach, and assistant principal, as well as she's been on the school council for the Callahan. We have a parent from Norwood High School who is a SPED coordinator in a different district. And she, again, represents the high school. We have another parent representing the Cleveland who is a comms professional, a communications professional, and has worked in public policy and advocacy over a number of decades. And then we have another parent representing the Prescott who is the multi-language coordinator in a nearby district. And that rounds out our parent group. You'll note that we have 5 instead of 4, and that was because we were very heavy on the elementary submissions, and we wanted to add someone, that high school parent, to try and round things out a bit. In our staff category, we have the high school represented, 2 elementary schools, an administrator, as well as the middle school. And SPED is represented as well. And then for the town, we have FinCom represented, as we had originally talked about. The facilities department is not able to sit on the committee as we had originally wanted, but through some different discussions, we were suggested to have a member of the personnel committee represent the town, who brings a lot of good experience in terms of their own sort of human resources and DEI work that they've done in their own profession, as well as they're a town meeting member, as well as they've been on the personnel board and sat on different hiring committees for the town and have a really good appreciation for the importance of this role as it relates to the town. So those are the recommendations, and basically next steps would be, with your approval, we would confirm these folks tomorrow and let them know, and then we would make it public after discussion, after we sort of figure out and finalize. So with that, I would take any questions. Or David, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think the only 2 things to speak to was one of the town people, the finance facilities that were appointed, couldn't do it and cited time as that person sits on some other committees, and the second in command, it was similar, so we wanted to respect that. And in conversations with with them, they had shared that, and we wanted to sort of stay true to that town side seat. And then I think, obviously to the parents, we talked, I know have expressed my viewpoint on making sure we keep the committee slim, obviously, and that comes from a different perspective. I recognize, but I think that the work that was done, that the people that we are putting forward are qualified, and I think covers a lot of the conversations that this board has had in regards to creating this committee. So we would ask for your vote of approval on that.
Is there a motion to approve?
If you guys have questions first.
Could I ask a question, or you?
Sure, I'm
Um,
just motion and then
yeah,
discussion, or,
yeah.
okay.
So thank you, David and Kate. I know this has been a lot of work and very thorough, and the committee you put together represents everything that we had talked about. I just have one concern, and I know that no parents from the middle school applied, and that's why you don't have a middle school parent on there. But it is very elementary heavy, and then a little bit of high school, and I don't think quite enough representation of the middle school. And I know, David, you don't want to add more people, but I do wonder if one more person who would be able to speak to the middle school experience could be beneficial. And then also, one of the people that you have not chosen on here does have experience on many of the initiatives that we as a district need to tackle, the elementary study and the middle school work. So I just think that we could add one more person just to make sure the middle school is as equally represented as the others. That's my only backup question.
I'll piggyback off of that and actually say that I continue to stand by the fact that we should either have a facilities representative or drop that seat. A random representative, not that they're random, but a representative from the town without connection to the school, past, present, or future, to me doesn't make sense on this type of a committee. So we wouldn't actually be adding anybody if you.
I personally would rather add one than lose that seat. I think I think it adds value in this particular case with this particular individual. That's not always the case, and that's why we have discretion. But.
I do not know the individuals involved. I'm simply coming at it from an org perspective.
Intellectually, that makes sense to me. And we're at 14. The max would be 15. I think for the assistant superintendent, it was 14. It did not feel like too many in the room. I think we're not asking for a huge ad, but I also think this is a solid group. I think I see your point. It would have been nice to have, you could go into more subgroups and try to get more representation in different levels too. But given that, it's a big time ask and we got what we got, this is sort of where we are. So anyone else have questions or thoughts? Anne Marie, did you have any input?
No.
Okay.
I mean, to be clear, this is a great committee you're putting together, and I'm not criticizing anybody. I just think one more would be helpful.
We're at the point where either someone needs to make a motion or we need to have or somebody needs to have an additional discussion point.
I'll make a motion to approve with the addition of one other person.
With the addition of an additional middle school representative. I want to be clear.
In addition of the admin member who can represent the middle school as well as the initiatives that we have going forward as a district.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Is there any more discussion? Okay, I have to poll individually because we're hybrid. Anne Marie.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
Kate.
Yes.
I'm a no. David.
Yes.
Yes, so that passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
So Kate, the next steps, would you just tell us?
So so the next steps are I will reach out to those that are confirmed, and I'll probably just reach out to everyone and thank them
Yes.
again, right?
Everyone
Thank them
will.
again for reaching out. And then confirm the schedule with them. Our orientation is on November 29th, and that's when Jim from MASC will orient us in terms of what to expect. And sort of confidentiality signatures will happen, and we'll start to look at questions. David and I have also done a preliminary review of some of the questions floating around there. Sort of at this point, really the goal is to use the content from the survey to craft those questions, to finalize those questions. But we sort of started eliminating things that don't apply that have been circulating, but something to get us off the ground, something to get the conversation going when that's ready. But so that happens in that orientation process where we. Sorry, I just had an intrusive thought. Do you ever have that when you're trying to talk? And so then the interviews begin on December 4th. And we can publicize. What I can do is do an outline and just publish it, have for the website available, just so people understand the process and who the committee is and sort of how that's going to roll out.
That'd be great.
Because there won't be much to update really until it's the semifinalist interview process, and then at our mid-January meeting, we make a recommendation to this board.
So people should look for upcoming communication regarding next steps and the confirmation of the committee.
Yes.
And the composition of the committee. Okay, great.
Yep.
With the committee's permission, I'd like to push the long-term agenda because we do have 2 more votes, including one that will likely be substantial. That isn't subject that we can talk about over email, text, et cetera. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Anne Marie, are you okay with that?
Yep, I was just gonna tell you, email me.
Okay.
If I call-
Email Anne Marie.
I'll look at it and email it.
All right. Policy Subcommittee, Anne Marie and Kate.
Oh, you skipped
missed
the
one.
elementary.
What did I skip?
Elementary study.
Oh my God, I did. I'm so sorry. Even more reason to push the long-term agenda. Elementary school space utilization. I'm sorry, Dr. Thompson and Ms. Sheridan.
I'm gonna defer to Ms.
You want me to
Sheridan.
start there?
Yeah, because you were able to run that meeting for the task force.
What did you say?
Yes.
You're up, Ms. Sheridan.
Okay, I'll start. So, the elementary school space utilization analysis and tech support services. So the district went out for 3 quotes, for procurement of the service, not more than 100,000, and there was one company that chose not to submit a proposal. They did not have the time at the moment, to add this to their task, and so we got 2 quotes in. One came from Flow Analytics, and another came from AppGeo. Flow Analytics, total for the project, was $112,649. They also give us a quote for some additional support, that they added to this project, which brought them to $118,281. That second company, AppGeo, which is a local company in Boston, their quote for the project came in at $67,014. And the budget that we have for this is $60,000. So if you go with the lowest AppGeo, then it's $7,014 over the budget. The rule for the procurement for quotes is the contract is awarded to the responsible person, company offering the needed quality of supplier service at the lowest quotation. So if you're going to determine between these 2, the lowest quote, as long as you feel that they both offer the needed quality of the supplier service, then you would have to take AppGeo at the $67,014. You can choose not to pick either one of these and go back out for further quotes, or you can go out to bid for the services. But the group met, and we thought that recommending AppGeo would be good idea. AppGeo has 30 years of experience, as has completed over 1,000 projects, worked in more than 40 states. If you look through their packet, they do have references. I did speak to several districts that I know that have used AppGeo in the past, and all were extremely happy with them. Unless you feel like this package does not give you everything that you anticipated for this, I think the recommendation was to go with AppGeo.
Karen, just before we open it up to the committee, can you speak to the timelines? And I know it was something that was set in that group as well. So for the procurement piece, we've met the legal standard where we went out to bid. We had 3 people come back. One obviously dropped out just because of the volume of work that they had. One came back, which was, almost double, if not more, than what we had originally budgeted for. And then although the third did come back a little bit over, if we were to not approve, and I guess this is more of a correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, that we would then have to start this process over again. So one of the conversations that took place in that group, and I hear it, but I think this whole thing came out of, we're building a 5 through 8, what are the elementaries going to look like? We've talked about sort of that immediate first step once the 5th grade is out. And what does that look like? What does that do for our space programming, all of those things? But time is one of those variables, and we don't have a lot left. Because even if we were to vote and approve and do all of this, the timeline is that this report does not get to us to May of 2024, which gives us roughly 14 months before the new middle school opens. So have I misspoken at all there, Karen?
No, the timeline that AppGeo gave was the estimated time for completion in May 22nd. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, I did give you a spreadsheet in your packet. I did confirm with AppGeo because Flow Analytics separated out survey and website content as a separate price. But I did confirm with AppGeo that their quote indicated a website and survey was included in that price. So I agree with David. If you go out to get some more quotes or go the bid process, you're going to add probably another month just to get somebody in.
Kate.
Just to get the quotes in.
Yep.
There is no guarantee.
Kate.
It'll be longer than that to go out to bid.
Kate.
Just to Dave's
What?
point, there is no guarantee that we would get a better quote, and Karen has said multiple times before that there aren't a lot of people doing this, and that when you have done your research, this is really the name you kept getting. But I did just want to add that in that meeting, the principals that were in the meeting, there is a sense of urgency to get this information to see what it produces so that next year can be a planning year for the administrators in terms of planning for the 5th grade move up. So that came through pretty clearly that, again, they want to see what these different scenarios might look like and what the different options could be, and have that information to as tools as they sort of game out, the different programmatic options, classroom sizes, etc.
So is there a motion?
Move to approve the bid for AppGeo.
Is there a
Accept,
second?
approve.
Second.
Okay, so the motion put on the table by David is to approve AppGeo and seconded by Kate. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to add that I think it came through an email that there was, most of that overage could be found in something that wasn't spent.
We had money set aside for the youth health. Would we have money set
No,
aside?
for interface.
Interface.
Yeah, the town needs the money for the survey.
Just in case anyone's wondering.
So interface money that the health department did not, there's 5,000 left of that. Obviously, we have some spend down.
So spend down, just in case anyone was thinking like, oh, well, that's an overage, where's it coming from?
Yeah.
So
So this timeline has them committing that they're gonna be done with their work and presenting to us by the end of May?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what she has.
Is there any further
The
discussion?
timeline said from 12/20 to 5/22.
Right, okay. And then Kate, you had started to reference it earlier when we were like, blending conversations.
Yeah.
So this unfortunately doesn't do everything that we had hoped. It's definitely a great start, but you were saying that the working group felt that there are things that we already have some expertise in the district to fill in along with this. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I kind of along the same lines of that the principals really felt like the technology aspect and the demographic projections and all of that, that's not their fields, right? But once they have that information or what different scenarios, then I think what the sort of fancier pitch packet was like they were saying, well, we're educators, so we can bring this to it.
Okay.
And I think our educators really felt like, well, we have, we already have that lens, obviously, plus we know our district. So it's the really technical piece that we, not that they were closed off to other input or other expertise, but that if this is our situation, really, it's this piece that we really need anyway, because we're gonna, within Norwood, need to run the different things that make sense for our kids, I think.
Okay,
That's where they were coming from.
makes sense.
Any additional discussion?
No.
Okay, I have to pull individually. Anne Marie,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
I'm a yes. David?
Yes.
So that passes 5-0. Now, we can
So
go
quickly,
to,
could Dr. Thompson just tell us what the next steps are? So we sign this, they start with us in December. How does this interwork with like objective 2 in the strategic plan?
Can I answer that another time?
Okay.
yeah.
I think our only biggest thing to echo
Yeah.
is just on your side, who will be on the administrative side, who will be the point person.
Well, it'll probably be me and whomever we find to do the business work, so.
Okay.
Yep. So the first thing is to get them the signed contract so that they can put us in queue and get moving, so.
Great.
Okay, policy subcommittee update.
Okay, we had a really quick meeting this last time. Let me just pull up my right page of notes. So right now, Jill Driscoll has provided some notes for JLCA, and that's been really helpful, but we need to condense that for something to vote on for December 6th, and that is about physical exams for our students. And we have a couple of items that were basically policies that Anne Marie knows a little bit better than me, but they're basically condensed policies, so we're not losing much. There is one thing we have to clarify, but it's just more that sort of 2 policies kind of got condensed. So that's more of a formality. And then our next meeting is on the 28th, and we're looking at, I don't have the agenda for me. I can send you the agenda, but we're looking at like they're in the eyes, I think. So apologies for that, but I figured the most important thing for us to do in this busy meeting is to get a vote on the where is it? It's listed here.
BDFA.
BDFA, and yeah. And so I can just, unless you guys have questions, hand it over to Anne Marie for that.
Perfect. So in your packets, you have the copy of ones. I apologize, I didn't make it in there, the track change ones, but Jamie sent that out today. She had put the PDF versions in here, and I didn't realize that. So essentially, what we looked at this, I think it was August. We did look at this before, and then I realized I totally missed half of the assignment, basically, from MASC. So essentially what they did is they took BDFA, and then we had BDFA E1, E2, and E3, and they took those 4 policies and they made them into 2. So pretty much what happened is they took BDFA on school councils and BDFA E3 also on school councils and combined them. And that's why there's a track change version, because they added some language to BDFA. And then BDFE 1 and 2 got combined into BDFE. So technically that's a new policy because that file number didn't exist before. And that's why there's not a track change version there, because it's a mashing of two together that never, that didn't, like I said, didn't exist before. However, going through the language is still conserved from both BDFA E1 and E2, and was pretty much in, agreement with what our previous, what our own internal BDF E1 and E2 were. I think we were using the straight MASC policies in our own policy manual, so it wasn't a big change to go to what their new BDFE was. So what we're asking for tonight is to vote to remove our current policies BDFA E1, BDFA E2, and BDFA E3, to approve the amended BDFA, and to also approve a new BDFAE. I hope I didn't lose you guys there.
Nope.
No.
It's very roundabout way to get to one amended and one new policy and get rid of 3.
Was that a motion? Because I don't know if anyone's going to be able to repeat that.
Well,
We can make that a motion. I don't know if it needs to be 3 separate motions, because I don't know, and I wasn't 100% sure, because BDFAE, it's technically new because it's combining two, that file number didn't exist, but it's not new.
So we need to post it?
So I don't know if we need the
I think we
whole
need to
first
post
vote,
it.
second vote thing.
We probably just should.
I think we should post it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. It's easy enough to do, but, and we can put it back on another future agenda, but, so in that case, I would suggest making it into 3 separate motions. So that might make it a lot easier, but, I want to make sure there's no, I did see that there were potentially some questions earlier by email, so I want to see if there's any questions or discussion for that tonight.
Yeah, because we're splitting it into 3. Let's have the discussion in advance so we don't vote to remove policies and then not have any votes to get the policies back.
Yeah.
Questions?
So I'm
Comments?
fine with the removal. I understand what they're doing. I just have a question around BDFA.
Yep.
So last sentence, Anne-Marie, who are we saying is approving this? The school committee or the superintendent?
So this is just school councils. So this is not school improvement plans. BDFA is now 100% around school councils.
No, the last sentence in it says the formulation of a school improvement plan that may be implemented only after review and approval by the school committee.
So that is actually an agreement with BDFAE and our current BDFAE 1, 2, and 3 that says that it is approved by the superintendent and reviewed by the school committee. So if you look at even what's in our policy manual right now, the BDFA E1 and E2 do not say if the school committee approves it, it says we review it.
Right, I'm asking for clarification because the one in our packet that's a PDF has school committee bolded.
Right. So that was actually not an agreement in our own policy manual. So in our policy manual previously, our BDFA said approved by the school committee, but our BDFA E1 and 2 did not say that.
No, I want it approved by the school committee.
Right.
Right, but there's two.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying
no,
is
there's
we
two
would have to
conflicting.
change it also in E1, E2, or now E, because it needs to all match. And so we were already not in matching.
No, I understand, but what's in our packet isn't matching. So if I look at the PDF for BDFA, it says school committee. But then if I look at the track changes that Jamie sent out today, school committee is changing to superintendent. So I need to know what I'm voting on.
Okay, I see what happened. So the PDF that she put in the packet did not actually include the new language. So we would be asking to approve, and I didn't notice that when it got uploaded, that we would be asking to approve what was sent out today with the track change language. There are, and I can share it if you want me to share it, but.
So I'm going to move to push this, given that we have disagreements over the language, and it is complicated, and most of it didn't come through to us until via email today.
I saw that it was added to the packet, but I didn't notice that it wasn't.
There's no blame, but if we're going to be able to comprehensively review, we've already decided we can't be reviewing stuff.
Yeah, no, that's
That's fine, we'll sort it out.
So I'd like to make a motion to send this back to the policy subcommittee, or table it until the next meeting, and have the policy subcommittee provide clean copies so that there's no confusion. Is there a second for that? Seconded?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, Anne Marie?
Aye.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
I'm a yes. David?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-0. Okay. Okay, I'm not skipping anything. Extended day, MOA.
Yes.
That's
So-
right.
So in your packet, you have a copy of an extended day memorandum of agreement that would be between the school district and the town. And you also have a copy of a letter that we are proposing gets sent out. So before I dive into what are we doing, I just want to, very clearly and strongly emphasize this district's commitment to childcare. And I want to acknowledge everything that we have done, Dr. Thompson has done over the last 6.5 years to not only sustain but grow our extended day program, because it is in a very different place today than it was. And we've expanded it in many ways, and we understand and we value how important childcare is to our community. But as we all know, there have been a lot of challenges with having a childcare program kind of under the umbrella of the school district and also under the umbrella of EDC. So through some very thoughtful and deliberate consideration and review of data and collaboration with our town, we are proposing that extended day start to transition from Norwood Public Schools to the Norwood Recreation Department. And Dr. Thompson, Dr. Taylor, Ms. Sheridan has been working on this with Mr. Mizuko and John Kinney, who is the director of the Rec Center. And in the last month, we also added Matt Lane, who's the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and myself to that working group, so we could really make sure that we're looking at all aspects of this in terms of a service to the community, also protection of the staff, and build on the work and the programming that the district has done in the last 6.5 years around extended day. So there is an MOA, and that is really what we want to discuss and potentially vote on tonight. Again, this was developed in the working group. This was reviewed by our counsel, Melissa Murray. If we agree to this tonight, it will be on the Board of Selectmen agenda on November 28th. Just to give a high-level overview to the community, but obviously the school committee has all of this in front of you. What this MOA would outline is a pre-transition agreement and activities, and then the post-transition. So prior to July 1, what we would be agreeing to is that the recreation director, John Kinney, would start to have access to be in the schools for the extended day after school to do some consulting and observing and working with the extended day director in order to prepare and plan for taking over the program on July 1, 2024. So extended day would remain under the Norwood Public Schools through this fiscal year and school year. But then as of July 1, all of the extended day before school, after school, vacation programming, summer programming would live under the Recreation Center. With this MOA, there are things around use of facilities that we want to protect. The facilities policies or rental policies that we have as a district would still apply. There's things around the town agreeing that at least for the first year under them, so July 1, 24 until June 30th, 25, that they would maintain the program as is. So there would not be any fee increases, hour changes, location changes. There would not be any reduction in pay to any of our staff, because again, we want to protect our program for our community during this transition. There's language in here around the revolving fund. So as you know, from Karen's quarterly report, we have an extended day revolving fund that would need to stay in full operation through the end of June. It would continue to bring in the tuition for this current school year's program. But tomorrow night at town meeting is being asked to approve the opening of a revolving fund for the rec center for extended day, so that as of March 1st, 2024, they can start to collect registration and tuition for the programming starting July 1. There's language in here that, once the finance director for the schools assesses and determines that all bills have been paid, all payroll has been paid, then our revolving fund would close out. And by law, what has to happen is it closes out to free cash. But then if there is money left over, what could happen in the fall is at next fall town meeting, the town could appropriate that free cash into the new revolving fund. Also in this MA, again, is just their commitment to protect our fees. There's a commitment from the town to continue to offer vouchers or other support to families who need it that is equal in scope to the current voucher program. There's language in here around custodian cost, handbook participant and parent conduct, and then just some general agreements. So that is a high overview of what is in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback on the MOA.
I think it's going to be, I'd like to thank everyone for their work on this. I think this is going to be a good transition for our families. I think while we have tried to meet the needs of our families, it's not necessarily what our school district is, geared toward, mandated for. And so with this, we have great hopes that programming will not only remain consistent, but improve in the ways that the recreation department is uniquely built to be able to do that. So I appreciate, again, all the work, and I look forward to good news about the program.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me, the language that the current, I think it's a fiscal analyst,
Yes.
who is currently paid out of the revolving fund, who splits her time between the extended day and schools. It says that she'll wholly become an employee of Norwood Public Schools, but she will not have a split reporting or responsibilities at any point in time.
No, her position will not go with extended day. She's currently now fully
Right.
employed by Norwood Public Schools, so
Right, but she
will
spends a
remain.
lot of her time doing her duties. I'm saying her duties will shift towards 100% for the schools.
Which is why her salary
Okay.
will need to be reallocated to another
Right.
area under the school department budget.
Yep. Okay, got it.
So are you good with that part, Joan?
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me
Okay.
as it was written, so I just wanted to clarify my understanding.
Yep.
And we're just talking about the MOA, the letter is separate, right?
So yeah, I mean, I think if we could vote, I mean, we can talk about the letter too, but we definitely need to vote on the MOA and
Okay.
sign it. And then the letter that is in the packet is something that after Board of Selectmen also sign it, then Dr. Thompson and Mr. Mizuko would send the letter out officially. And the letter is just to give to parents in the community explaining the transition. There are some words in here that, like around the revolving funds, we need to edit it to match
okay.
the
So it's
language in
still
the MOA.
being edited.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure everybody would agree with the MOA first, and
Makes
then
sense.
this language in the letter would match what is in the MOA.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the extended day MOA? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Move to approve the MOA for extended day transition.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Kate, seconded by David. Any additional discussion? I have to poll individually. Anne Marie?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
I'm a yes. David?
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 5-0. I don't think we need to vote on the letter.
No, I just wanted to be, transparent and so you can see the letter that will be sent by Dr. Thompson and Mr. Mizuko. So since we approved that, we can get this in a more formal format, not in a Google Doc. And then we will want to sign it. And then again, it's going to be on the Board of Selectmen agenda on November 28th. There's no reason to believe they won't also approve it. And then at that point, probably makes sense to have another meeting with the working group, just so we can all touch base and plan out next steps, and make sure that the letter is wordsmithed and then go out.
Okay, excellent.
you.
Thank you. Consent agenda, Dr. Thompson.
Yes, we have, I've got too many tabs over. Gotta find the, nope. We have donations from Bay State Textiles to the grand total of $666.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, moved by David, seconded by Teresa. All, any discussion?
No.
Okay, Anne Marie,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
I'm a yes, David.
Yes.
So that passes 5-0. And we are at that fun time of the evening of school committee addenda. Anne Marie.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Teresa.
Do not have anything other than asking town meeting to support our warrant articles tomorrow.
Kate.
Yeah, I just want to let people know that the middle school is having a play, Treasure Island, this weekend, Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. And they've been working really hard on that. I'm excited to support them. And happy Thanksgiving.
My addenda this evening is that there have been conversations in the legislature regarding strikes and union strikes and those types of things. And I would just like to put forth that while the SAG-AFTRA strike and the United Auto Workers strikes have happened, and I fully support those, there is nobody in the school district making money, making record profits in the same way that other unions are dealing with. And so I would just like to remind everybody that the union, teachers' unions and school committees and administrators all have a common goal, which is the education of students. And the only people who benefit when we are fighting amongst ourselves is the people who are not paying enough taxes through corporations that would allow us to fully fund our schools, and unfunded mandates. It's really unfunded mandates who are the people who are benefiting. So I just want to put that out there that, there's been conversations in the legislature about that. And I just want to point out the difference that, nobody's making record profits in a school system. So hopefully we can be creative and find ways to work together to make sure everybody is paying their fair share and make sure the money that we voted in, like in the millionaire's tax last year, is going to the places that it was supposed to go to, which it is not. So that's my agenda. David.
Please support our articles at town meeting. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and congratulations Saturday to Norwood Field Hockey on their incredible run this year.
Okay. So we do have to go into executive session, so I need to poll. Do I adjourn first? And then, no, I poll first. So I'm going to poll first to go into executive session. Anne Marie?
Oh, gotta get a motion.
I need a motion. I need a
So
motion to go. Thank you.
Seconded.
Motioned by Kate, seconded by Teresa. Anne Marie?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
I'm a yes. David?
Yes.
Okay, and so now I can say we are going to adjourn. We will only come back into general session for the purposes of adjournment. So thank you all for watching our business meeting this evening.